All right, hello and welcome everybody to a special episode number 5 of Return to VideoTech. I'm Keith, and with me again is my lifelong buddy Matt. How's it going, dude?
Good, man. It's good to be back. I've been on a mad dash to try to get through as many movies as I could for this best of 2024 special episode. I'll have to tell you about my journey to try to get my number 10 off the list, my number 10 of the list off the list, but I didn't. Like, when we get to the list, I'm going to give my number 10. And I was like, I just, for some reason, feel like, I don't know, it feels like there should be something better than this. Although my number 10 is probably like your number 3.
Yeah, I'm
No,
sure our lists are probably going to be pretty different.
that's
For
good.
me, this year was awesome for me. I thought there
Dude,
were so many good movies. Like, I had a hard time actually narrowing down. Like, I have like 5 honorable mentions.
one of the things that I thought about doing but didn't was making a list of how many movies I rated 3.5 this year, which is like quite a few. And as I've hit on in multiple episodes, that's a positive score from me. There's been a bunch of years from 20. So we're going to talk about 2016 a little bit in this episode, which I thought was a pretty good year, especially when you look back at it. But there's been a bunch of years, especially we had those pandemic years in the mix where I got to tell you, like my highest rated movie of the year was like a 4.5, and there was stuff making my list that was like threes because there haven't been that many good years in the past several years in terms of
Yeah.
like overall. But I am totally with you. Maybe like the top stuff isn't as good as like, oh, there was a year where we had like No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood and whatever. And maybe like the top stuff isn't like that this year, but like it is, I thought it was a very enjoyable year of movies and a bunch of movies that people were just like, you got to watch this, you got to watch this.
Yeah, yeah. There's some good streaming stuff. There was a lot of I feel like for the last few years there's been this like very negative sentiment around Hollywood in general of like everybody just being like, "Oh, all there is like comic book movies and just like trash and just like yeah, like all this like Netflix streaming stuff is like all there is." When really there's a ton of great movies this year in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I get that there was that for a long time, and maybe stuff was happening along the way, but getting missed or looked over. But I think a lot of the other stuff got attention this year. Like when I looked at people's top 10 lists across the internet, I mean, you didn't see, I mean, there was not like a Marvel movie to be found. I mean,
Mhm.
like it was all stuff that you were like, okay, this is kind of niche, like a lot of niche stuff making the top 10 lists.
hmm For sure. I don't know. Yeah, I guess there's probably some independent stuff, but a lot of independent feeling stuff is like
Yeah. Yeah.
was popular this year, I think.
Which is good. It's good. It's good to see because I mean there were times where people were like, the indie film movement is dead because it's the easiest time to make an indie movie. Maybe with the cost of everything right now, okay, like that part is tough. But in terms of barriers to entry, it's
hmm
like not nearly as bad as it's ever been. Like you can get content out there in a way that people weren't
Yeah.
able to before. But I did see that Sean Baker, the guy that directed Honora, kind of like went off in one of his acceptance speeches about like being an indie movie lifer, and it's like the average time period to make a movie is like 3 years, and if you're not being backed by some big studio or have a big like salary to do the movie, it's like it's really tough. So I do get like that from an expense standpoint, it can be really rough. But just like the barriers of entry to get your
Yeah.
content out there, I mean, it's
I was listening to another podcast earlier just about Oscars stuff, and I found this out today. I don't want to jump the gun too much because I'm sure this will be a movie we're going to talk about, but did you know The Brutalist was made for less than $10 million?
I think I saw not that number doesn't resonate with me specifically, but I do feel like I looked at it at one point and was like, wow, this costs way less than I expected. Because it
Yeah.
looks like $100 million movie.
Yeah, I mean, compare it to however much it costs to make like Oppenheimer. Like,
Yeah. It
it's just
feels like of
crazy.
that scale. Right. You're right.
Yeah.
Like maybe you'd watch The Brutalist and be like, well, there's nothing that epic that happens here, like big set pieces or anything, but it's like long, shot on film, like
hmm
big actors. you would think. I mean, I would have thought Adrian Brody's salary would have been at like 10 million.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Sure.
So
Um,
before we get into our top tens, have you been watching anything cool, Matt? What have you been doing?
I really mostly have been making this push for this to try to make this list for my top 10 of 2024. Almost everything I've watched has been focused on that. I did watch Eli Roth Borderlands on my flight to Key West. Not a
How was
great
that? I
movie.
heard it was terrible.
Not a great movie. I gave it 2 stars, which was probably rounding up. I do like Eli Roth, as he once tweeted about my previous show. So, I'll always hold him in high regard. And I was not a big gamer, but Brian and I used to play the Borderlands video game together when we
Oh
lived
yeah.
together. That was it was like a really fun co-op video game, and while that really has no bearing on the production value of the movie, I was
Yeah.
feeling a little, well, I feel bad giving this 1 star.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet. I am also a big Eli Roth fan, so
Yeah.
if he ever listens to the show, my apologies. I really like I really like you as a person and movie maker. Um, but dude, I was kind of surprised at how terrible the reviews were for that movie. It has isn't Kate Blanchett in that, and
Yeah.
it has a pretty
Kevin
big
Hart.
cast.
Yeah, it's a decent amount of recognizable people that are in it, but yeah, it's just I mean, I was actually thinking about it while I was watching it because I was like, here's a question I could ask Keith. Has there ever been a great movie that was based off a video game? And before you answer that, I was like, he'll immediately be like, "Hello, Mortal Kombat 1."
Yes, I love that movie.
Which look, I would be like, to be fair, yeah, the first Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. I mean, obviously now there's The Last of Us, but that's like prestige HBO TV.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But it's an example of something that they've made quality
Yeah.
content
I
based off
enjoy
the.
the first Resident Evil movie. I thought was cool.
Well, I love the Resident Evil game, and I've always wanted there to be an adaptation that's straight from the game. And they did one a few years ago.
Yeah, it was called something about Raccoon City. I can't remember. I actually
Yeah,
have the Blu-ray for it, but I haven't
but I think
watched
it's
it in a
kind of
while.
it's kind of a combo of the first 2 video games, right? I think
Yeah. I
something like
actually
that.
heard recently that they're rebooting it again though. And I can't remember who I can't remember who it is that's doing it, but it's somebody notable.
Well, when you've got great source material, it's always going to come back. Um,
Anyways,
I don't know. I was thinking that I was missing probably something obvious in the video game realm, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. But yeah,
yeah,
Borderlands, not really moving the needle for me.
yeah.
That being
Sorry to
said,
hear.
Keith, also while I was on the plane, Lindsay was listening to our last episode, and I was texting you about it a little bit, and we've kind of made it a habit in these first few episodes to just critique our last episode or either do corrections or revisions or things that we messed up, because for some reason we will actually stop and look things up sometimes,
Hmm.
and then sometimes we're just like, I don't know if that's true, let's just move on. And so Lindsay has taken it upon herself to do her little editorializing and making comments and notes, and she sent me her list from last episode.
All right, let them rip.
First, and these are mostly anti me, okay? Because I'm the one that's talking a bunch of shit and saying all of these things that just aren't true and acting like they are. She said the slasher movie with text messages is called Drop. So you were explaining the one
Hard
movie,
eyes.
Hard Eyes, yeah, and I was like, is it this? No, the real movie is Drop, and she just parenthetically mentions that Megan Fahey from White Lotus season 2 is in it, and I did realize once you were explaining Hard Eyes, I was like, no, it's not that. Would never have gotten that the name of the movie I was thinking of was Drop, but her and I did see a
Yeah.
trailer for that together.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. I wouldn't have guessed that either.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing any trailers for Drop, so
Now, next point. This is rough. Matt is stupid with rhymes and writes dash grape question mark.
oh.
Yeah, Absolutely mortifying for me, but I don't know. I guess I just got to lean into it. It's just like sometimes my brain just like does not get there. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's so stupid. It's so obvious. Like how am I not getting what Keith is saying? And it's just like, look, sometimes it takes me a second. All right,
Uh,
like,
in your defense, it kind of came out of nowhere, though. I mean,
yeah. Now I'm not sure if we're going to continue this little bit about the thing. I'm a little bit not really digging the fact that my sister started texting us like saying that we were wrong about something. I'm like, is this going to be the thing of the show now? Like,
she was telling us that we both have amnesia and don't remember watching Cannibal Holocaust together at some point in Pittsburgh. I don't think
which
that happened.
I pushed back on. I mean, I was tying Dustin into it. So the Dustin element is crossover between both stories, but we definitely didn't watch the entire movie as a group in Pittsburgh. There's no way. I mean,
Maybe some people did, but we probably weren't
yeah.
there.
Lindsay writes, need a category / running list for, quote, if Keith comes over to visit, we will watch it, end quote. This is true. That's just a
Yeah.
good observation. I like unchecked. I would probably say that about 100 movies. I would say this is in the top 5 list of if Keith comes over, we'll watch it.
Do you remember the last movie that was for us?
Was it Crash, the
Yeah,
Cronenberg
David
movie,
Cronenberg's Crash.
which we'll have to do. We'll have to
Yeah.
spotlight at some point.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to talk about that movie again.
For some reason, I felt like you needed to watch that with me.
I'm glad we watched that one together because
Yeah.
that is an experience of a movie.
Certainly is. Storm of the Century, which I mentioned, I called it a made-for-TV movie. She corrected, it's a miniseries.
Oh,
All
okay.
right. That's a little harsh, but okay. This one did stick with me after the fact. First Twilight movie was 2008, which was after 30 Days of Night. So 30
Oh,
Days of
yeah.
Night, not actually a reaction to
Yeah.
Twilight being the leader.
I totally get what you were getting at with that though, because it did feel like vampires had kind of been out of the zeitgeist, and 30 Days of Night's version of the vampires especially felt super unique. So
Yeah. She just makes a comment here. People on Instagram love Twilight. Definitely having a resurgence. I have not seen that. I'm not here for it. Let's just say that.
I'm not surprised. I feel like that's something that, like Gen Zers who are getting into like retro stuff now are
That's
like,
true. I guess it's the next generation's nostalgia already. Like
yeah.
it's like us in 2008 being like, "Hey, you want to watch the original Mortal Kombat?"
Yeah, yeah. 1995 was so long ago.
She had to stomp on my Grammys bit by pointing out that Olivia Rodrigo didn't perform at the Grammys, nor did she have an album in 2024. Her last new album was 2023. But I do remember distinctly she introduced Chappell Rowan's performance, which, made the night for me, I would say. I don't think you're going to have a lot of thoughts on that.
No, I didn't watch the Grammys.
The Jennifer Lawrence comedy is called No Hard Feelings. I think I said like Anyone But You, which
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree.
When we were talking about Jennifer Lawrence being naked, everybody knew what we were talking about.
I knew it wasn't the name that I came up with, but I was like, I don't know. It doesn't feel worth looking up.
No, yeah.
Matt referring to seeing the quote new Harry Potter as the new series that hasn't even started filming yet. I was just referring to whatever the Fantastic Beasts movies. I haven't seen all of those. That's what I was referring to. And she, last point, strongly disagrees that Michael Caine's Alfred was quote blubbery.
I'll second that.
I found him to be quite blubbery. Oh, Mr. Wayne. Master Bruce, why don't you have a girlfriend?
Dude, for some reason, I thought of this other movie that he was in. I think it's called Henry. Did you ever see Henry?
I've never seen Henry, no. Which is wild because I feel like I've seen every Michael Caine movie, but apparently not.
It's the one where he's like this old man vigilante dude, and he's just going around like beating up like thugs and stuff. I don't know.
No, I have not seen this. What year is this, roughly?
Like 2008, 9 maybe.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna have to look it up real quick.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Michael Caine Well, I guess that was like in the middle of his Christopher Nolan run. Oh, going back to the dark
Yeah.
web to try to find this. You type with
Yeah.
purpose when you're looking stuff up.
Well, now my stack of Dad Bro DVDs are in front of me, so.
By the way, not non-Dad Bro DVDs. Do you have physical media to show it all in this episode? I have two. I have
I
two movies.
have about half of my list on physical media.
Oh wow! Holy shit!
Yeah.
That's
Some
good.
of them are unopened. Oh, my bad. It's not called Henry. It's called Harry Brown.
Okay, well, still have never seen.
Anyways, it's a cool one. Maybe we'll talk about it at some point.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I overall not horrifically wrong about things in the last episode, although it's possible Lindsay didn't catch all of the things that I was wrong about.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. We're all human here.
Yes, we are. So I guess before we get into the main episode, probably one thing, at least from my perspective, worth mentioning: Gene Hackman passing.
Oh yeah, very sad. Very sad.
Pretty big bummer, especially after we just talked about Night Moves.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think of like other great movies, and I always just go straight to Royal Tenenbaums.
Of course, yeah.
I posted a scene from that movie where he takes his grandkids like on this like just adventure of showing them all how to like break the rules about like pretty much everything, and I just love that scene. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any favorite scenes with him or movies with him?
Oh, of course. I mean, anything in Royal Tenenbaums. I mean, he's like pound for pound every scene in that movie, the greatest,
Yeah.
character in a movie of great characters.
Mhm.
I have like a Royal Tenenbaums like framed picture like in the master bedroom. Okay, so that's the level of fandom we're talking about here. But yeah, I mean, look, it was in Bonnie and Clyde, Night Moves. I mean, just a great like he was great for those neo noir movies, and then really like carried as like a top guy through the 90s, even like an advanced age, like just
Mhm.
an all-time great. It was weird. My mom was talking to me on the phone last night. I hadn't talked to my parents in a few weeks, and she mentioned that Michelle Trachtenberg passing away from
Mhm.
of course we know her from Pete and Pete, but which was weird and sad and out of left field, but like I had someone that I hadn't thought about in a long time, and she was like, "Well, I didn't see you post anything on your Instagram story about this. Normally, you're on it when there's like a person from movies or whatever that passes away." And I was like, "Well, I got to tell you, I might be done because after David Lynch passed, that was like the biggest impact for me. I don't know if there's going to
Yeah.
be another, maybe like, not that I want to put this out in the universe, but maybe like Bill Murray or something." But I was
Yeah.
like, I was
That'd
like,
be
I don't know,
sad.
the David Lynch thing really hit me, and then I don't know. It just I was like, I don't really see myself posting anymore. And then as soon as Gene Hackman passed away today, I reposted your video about it. I mean, well, it was like a
Uh,
Mad Men episode. Like I say this line, like, yeah, I'm not really doing that anymore. And then like the next day, I'm like posting
yeah.
something.
Dude, yeah. Something about posting about stuff like that to me always feels a little weird just cuz it's like I don't actually know these people,
I
but
know.
I am sad about it. And for some reason I was just like when I heard the news that he had passed, I was like thinking I was like, that's actually one of my favorite scenes in all of like Wes Anderson's movies. So I was like, I'm just going to post it. It's cool. Um
I know. We
yeah,
should
I
have
don't know.
done a little BB gun salute.
Yeah.
Fire.
Um,
So, yep.
well, yeah,
We'll miss you, Gene
it's
Hackman.
sad.
Yeah.
It's sad.
So
But moving on.
yeah. Well, we do have a lot of content to cover this episode, so that being said, I think we'll just if you haven't been paying attention to last episode or the show overall, we normally do segments. We're going to be bypassing those segments this episode and each just doing our top 10 list for 2024, and then a little spotlight on La La Land and Moonlight combined, and then we'll get you out of here so we can all enjoy the Oscars this year.
Okay, Matt, it's time to get into our top tens for this year. Why don't you take it away with your number 10?
Okay, so my number 10 might be my most controversial on the list. As I looked across different lists, I mean, there were people who I saw were ranking like 50 movies, and this wasn't on the list. But as I was watching movies throughout the, and I did watch this a while back. I saw it in the theater, had a great theatrical experience. Um, my number 10, Keith, is Alien Romulus.
Okay.
Is this on your list or no?
This is on my list.
Oh, okay,
It,
good. That makes
it's
me feel
not
good. That
it's not my number 10. It
yeah,
it it came close. Like I was debating on putting this on here as well. Do you want to
I'm a
just talk
little
about it now since we're
yeah,
already
yeah,
on it?
yeah,
Let's just
yeah.
talk about it. Yeah.
I'm just a little. I was like a little ashamed that I put this on my list because I just saw that like nobody had it on their list, but I thought like, and this is off brand for me because I don't normally. It's not normal for me to include like something that's like part of a franchise that's like a later entry down the road. It's just less often that those end up on my list, but I thought that this was like pretty close to like bringing back those feelings of the very original Alien.
Yeah, I love the retro future aesthetic, just like
Yeah.
the dumpy spaceships and just like the dark feeling. And I love how they used like some practical effects and stuff. I know a lot of people were complaining about some of the CGI and stuff, but
It
I
was a
thought,
little much at times. It was a little much at times. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it because it is still kind of new, but there is one character that comes back-ish, and that was the
Yeah.
main one that everybody was complaining about. I didn't think it looked that bad, to be
No,
honest.
I thought that looked pretty good. If anything, I was a little bit more once they do the whole thing with the baby, which I thought was like really cool and really taking it to a whole new level of like gross out.
Hmm.
But it was at a certain point I was like, this is a little too much like CGI for me.
Yeah, there was a few moments that were a little heavy on the CGI, but I know they did use like puppets for some of the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, there was definitely a decent amount of practical effects happening in the movie, which, you love to see it. I think, look, I've said it at least to you before. I think the Xenomorph is the best, like, original, like, monstery type villain for any movie.
yeah. I'm kind
Yeah.
of surprised when I think about that. I'm always kind of surprised that we didn't get other H.R. Geiger like designed creatures,
Yeah.
for movies. Like with how, iconic the Xenomorph is, you would think that other people would have went to him and been like, can you come up with something for us, Or was it just inspired by him?
I'm
I
not
don't,
sure.
yeah, I don't know. We might
This
have to cut.
you're getting outside my area of expertise.
Yeah, I feel like I should know this, being such a big Alien fan myself, but I
Well,
don't.
same. Yeah, I mean, look, an Alien, the original Alien is even one of those movies that, like, I mean, listen, I make Lindsay sit through like a lot of stuff that she's just like, why are you making me watch this? Like,
Hmm.
but the first time her and I watched Alien, which of course it's generally accepted as a great movie, but that doesn't always mean that it's gonna be for everyone. But like the first time we watched Alien, she was like, oh wow, this is like immediate 5-star for her, which she could be a
Had
tough
she
critic
never
on.
seen it before?
No,
Oh
and,
wow.
and in a way that she was going on and on about. She's like, the effects in this look better than like almost any movie I've seen in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And Alien Romulus, I just felt like it's not there, you know.
Yeah.
But out of all the movies in this series, this is like, which they've done a lot now. For me, Aliens, um, not Covenant, but the one before. I like Prometheus.
Prometheus.
I like Prometheus too. But then,
I love Prometheus,
yeah,
dude.
and but then,
I'm a Prometheus stan.
okay, say I like Prometheus too.
Yeah.
And then Alien Romulus for me is like
Yeah.
that's the top of
It's
the list.
top 4 for me too. I put
Yeah.
it in that same. I go back and forth between. I'm pretty sure I like Prometheus more, but I think Romulus is probably number
Same.
4 for me.
Yeah, okay. I am with you on that, and I'm glad that this made your list because I gotta tell you, it was like I was like feeling shameful about having this as my number 10, but I
Well,
really
here's the
went off.
thing.
Yeah,
I feel like the reason, and I probably feel a little bit of it too, is because it was getting battered online for having too much fan service.
yeah,
I feel like
I
But
get that.
dude,
Yeah.
I thought the fan service that they did was great. I really liked it. And a lot of people also really didn't like the creature at the very end, like the hybrid thing or whatever you see.
Yeah, that's
Um, I
which
know I
was
said I
very
wasn't gonna spoil it,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
dude, I thought the thing at the end was actually creepy. Like,
Creepy and like I thought gross. Like
yeah,
it like physically made me feel ill.
un unsettling, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's very similar to the thing. I don't know when the last time was that you watched Resurrection. I think it's Resurrection where they do the
Yeah.
human slash alien baby thing
And that
too.
was always like that was always like for me the highlight set piece of that movie because it's not a very strong movie overall, but that like sequence where they're
Hmm.
showing you all of the like failed experiment things,
Yeah.
it was
Something
always
about the creature like wanting to go back to its mother or something is very unsettling.
yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Okay. Well, I feel a little bit better. I mean, because I just there was a little bit of a run that I was like, I gotta watch more of these movies to see if
Hmm.
it like knocks Alien Romulus off those. Because I gave Alien Romulus 4 stars, and this was like the year of 3.5 star movies for me. Like I probably have like 10 plus movies that I gave 3.5 stars. So
Hmm.
obviously, Alien Romulus being at 4, it's higher than all of those, but I think it's lower than everything else that I have, which
Hmm.
again is a testament to the year because there were a lot of years where like I had a 4.5 as my number one, and then like maybe a few fours and then 3.5s, and even like maybe a 3 was like making the list. So, in terms of how much I liked movies, an indicator of a strong year. So, why don't you give your number 10, Keith?
All right, so my number 10, I didn't see in the theaters, but after watching it, I really kind of wish I did. And I also don't have the Blu-ray of it, which is another thing that I wish I would have bought. Um, Vinegar Syndrome put it out and it sold out like immediately.
Oh wow.
I think there's like a regular Blu-ray of it, but what I'm talking about is Hundreds of Beavers is my number 10. Did you see Hundreds of
I
Beavers?
didn't see Hundreds of Beavers. I did see this actually pop up on some people's lists, though.
So, like you said, it was really hard for me to like narrow down my top 10, so this could have been there's a handful of other movies that I could have put down for my number 10 probably, but when I really got to thinking about it, I was like, I feel like this movie just like needs to be on the list because of how creative it is. Like,
Okay.
have you even seen trailers or anything for it?
I know nothing.
Okay, so after the show, you'll have to watch a trailer for it because it is like it's a crazy movie. It's basically this black and white like slapstick live action Looney Tune movie basically of these people dressed up in beaver costumes. And there's this guy, this like big burly like mountain man looking dude. He's played by this dude Rylan Brixton Cole. Um and I don't remember what magazine it was, but some magazine after the movie came out voted him like sexiest man alive because he's like I don't know, he's just like this buff dude. But
Yeah.
anyways, the movie's like it's hilarious. He's kind of like the gist of the story is he's just like this bumbling guy who lives in the woods, and he he learns how to trap these beavers and all these little critters to survive at first, and he meets this merchant where he goes and sells the pelts or the I don't know what you call it, the animal furs or whatever, and he falls for the merchant's daughter.
Oh boy.
And like it's almost like a video game. People have been describing it kind of like a video game where his goal through the whole movie is to just so he falls for the daughter, and one of the items the merchant has is like a ring,
Okay.
and so that's where the name of the movie Hundreds of Beavers, it's going to cost him hundreds of beaver furs to buy this ring for the merchant's daughter.
This sounds like
And
a classic meet cute
dude,
romantic comedy.
it's so goofy. It's actually it is like a silent film too actually. I don't think there's any speaking at all.
Oh
And
wow.
it's slapstick, it's super funny. Um
Well, this
when you
at a
get the
minimum,
opportunity, you should check it out. I don't have
yeah.
much else to say about it, but it's fun. I think you
No,
would like it.
yeah. At a minimum, this just sounds like a unique experience that you're not getting every day. So I'm in.
Yeah, and that's why I felt like I had to put it on the list because I'm just like a sucker for like unique concepts and stuff like that, and like a lot of the effects and stuff in the movie it looks like stuff that like I could actually do in After Effects, and it was kind of
Yeah.
inspiring. I was like, I kind of want to like try to like make my own mini Hundreds of Beavers movie at some point or something, just for fun.
Absolutely.
Um,
Well, listen, I'll definitely get behind that idea.
yeah, you gotta at least watch the trailer. And after you watch the trailer, I'll think you'll be in to watch it. I think it's
Listen,
streaming on Amazon,
I'm
but
in. I'm in right now. Okay,
okay.
you got me sold.
Yeah.
Um, when I saw people like throwing that title out there, I immediately was thinking of Zombievers. Have you ever seen that?
No, but that's one of those ones that I think Burton brought home at one point from Blockbuster, and I just missed it. There was like a one
Uh,
about killer lambs or something too that I never
well,
saw.
yeah, I don't think Zombievers. It would have been beyond. I think the Burton blockbuster.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of
Years.
something
I think
else.
it was more like a 2015 or something.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm making
Um,
that up in my head.
yeah. Well, check out Zombievers, also a quality film. Um,
All
ready to
right, well, do
move
you want to
on?
give us your number 9 then?
I would assume this is on your list. I'm gonna be surprised if it's not. But number 9 for me, a recent watch and one of the pieces of physical media that I was able to bring to this episode, Strange Darling.
That was one that I had to cut sorely.
It cut. It cut. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was thinking it might have made your list.
No, it did. It's in my honorable mentions, but
Got the okay. In lieu of Blind Buyer still in shrink wrap, here's the thing. I thought this was a 2023 movie. And so I didn't watch it and I was just putting it off and I was like one day I will watch it, but I wasn't including it on my to-dos for 2024 until I saw that cuz you watched this relatively recently too, right?
yeah, I did. I watched it maybe a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Because you put up a thing that was like, hey, movies that I should still watch for my 2024 list. And I saw this title was in the list. And I thought for some reason, I thought it was a 2023 year. Or for some reason, I thought it was a 2023 movie. But when I saw that it was an option, I was like, well, I'll watch that one too. I was still on my quest to knock Alien Romulus off the list, which this did not do. But I did enjoy it.
It has a very unique structure.
For sure. It's worth it for the story structure, and it looks really good too. Like, they start the movie off by like, declaring that it was shot in 33 millimeter film or whatever, which like, okay, I don't know if that's necessary, and it kind of feels like derivative of a few things, but I still thought it was like, I mean, coming in at like a 96-minute runtime, I just thought it was like a really fun, ride. It's like it feels like a thrill ride.
Yeah.
There's some
It was really
turns.
fun. It was close to making my list for sure. I don't want to poo-poo on the movie because it is a good movie. The reason why I didn't have it on the list kind of was just because I feel like it doesn't have a whole lot of rewatchability. It's kind of
Probably
like
true.
after you see the twists and the way that I feel like the way it's structured is what makes it super unique. But other than that, for me, it was still good. I don't want to poo-poo on it. It was
No,
good.
you're right. Well, certainly the narrative structure is like it's big, like calling card, but I do think that it did look really good, and it is like it keeps you on your toes, it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it's just like fun,
Yeah.
I mean,
There was a lot of fun, horny stuff in it for sure.
I mean, it's a dark thriller. People would be like, it's fun. I mean, there's like murder and people are dying, but like it's heightened,
Yeah.
like
Uh-huh.
I think Ed Begley Jr. and Barbara Hershey play some couple that like live out in the woods. It's like,
Hmm.
I don't know. It's sort of like goofy and thrilling and like all of these things at the same time.
Do you remember the name of the main actor? I'm blanking on his name
Kyle
right now.
Gallner.
Gallner. I actually really like that guy. He was in the Smile movie, and I really liked that.
No, he was kind of like he's like a scream queen as a dude. Like he's
I
in
know.
like so many horror movies.
Dude, yeah. I don't randomly thinking about this, but he was in the I think it was like 2010 or something, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake that I rewatched in October, and I was like, wait a second, this dude's in this?
I remember, yeah. Imagine like how many times that he mentions preschool in the movie.
Yeah.
We're talking
No,
about
you're
a
right though.
preschool.
He showed up in Scream, like the last Scream movie too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. I think he was famously on one of those like Law and Order SVU or something. Like he had kind of a prominent episode of one of those series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, he's good in this too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I definitely think Strange Darling at a minimum is worth a watch, and I had an
Oh yeah.
appreciation for its the how it was crafted together. And look, in the age where every movie has to be over 2 hours, I love like a 96-minute just
Mm-hmm.
thriller world that they throw you into. It's a little bit of a mystery. You got to put the
Mm-hmm.
pieces together. Well, they do. They put the pieces together for you, but like,
Yeah.
um,
It is a
as
fun
you're,
ride though.
yeah, absolutely.
Is that enough on
I
Strange
think so.
Darling?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I bet I'm feeling like my number 9 will probably be like yours was. Like you'll probably have the same feelings as I did for Strange Darling. I'm gonna guess that this isn't on your list.
Okay, go ahead.
But my number 9 is Ty West's Maxine.
You're right. Maxine is not on my list. It was one of the many movies that I gave a 3.5 for the
Mm-hmm.
year. Um,
Understandably so. I get the
okay.
complaints with it. I know a lot of people, I think, struggled with kind of where it goes towards the end of the movie, the culty type stuff. I do think that was maybe a little bit predictable. um,
I didn't predict it, but then again, as we went over with the grape situation, sometimes
yeah.
I'm not getting it.
Well, I feel like they planted the seed with like the video at the end of the first one or whatever, where it was like her dad is like this priest guy. If
Yeah.
I'm remembering right, I don't know.
I
I
don't
might
even.
be
I
getting
don't
that
really
wrong, but
remember that. I mean, my favorite of that trilogy is the first one, X.
yeah,
X was like
same here for sure.
whatever year that came out. That was like my number 4 movie or something that year. Like
Hmm.
I really enjoyed X. I
Yeah.
mean, I could have brought that. I got that on 4K.
Oh yeah, actually, I can show that. I bought the Blu-ray for
Yeah.
Maxine.
So I'll tell you this: I may have had a little bit of a expectation let down heading into Maxine, which is always, it's kind of harsh for the movie because it's like, how can the movie be what I think it's going to be in my head? Like,
Yeah.
so I
No,
always,
I definitely. Yeah, I feel the same. I had higher expectations, but it was still good enough in my eyes to be my
I agree.
number
Well,
9.
look, again, I still think it's a good movie and I enjoyed it. And I don't know. I didn't love Pearl. Lindsay really liked Pearl, and I think somebody, I don't know if it was Scorsese. What, like, it was like a big time director that was really into Pearl, but I
I
didn't
think
like
you
that
might be
one.
right. I think it might have been Scorsese. Which makes a lot of sense because it does feel like this like old-timey, you know, what's the not Panavision, what is it? The big colorful stuff like Sound of Music and stuff
I
was
don't know
shot in.
Technicolor. I don't know.
Technicolor, that's what it is. Yeah. Like Wizard of Oz type feel to it
Yeah,
kind of. Um
VistaVision.
yeah, the VistaVision, yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that X and Pearl are probably a little better than this movie, but I did like how it
Oh,
to me it felt kind of like this 80s like De
yeah.
Palma vibe to it
Well,
and
I was just gonna say though, for me though, I did have Maxine above Pearl, so for me, I
oh,
like
okay.
X, Maxine, Pearl, but
Okay.
because of what you're hitting on, which is like that whole throwback to the '80s feel,
Yeah.
um, there's a little bit of it that it, there's a little bit of Nicholas Winding Refn in there, like just a little
Hmm.
bit. I mean, it's definitely like goofier and a little bit more tongue in cheek, but
Yeah.
it's I don't know, and it's got like a really fun cast.
Hmm. Yeah, who is it that plays the not the detective guy, but he's kind of like the Chinatown guy.
Is it
Um,
that Bobby Cannavale or whatever?
I don't know.
He's one of the cops, I think.
Um, I don't know, but anyways, I liked the feeling of the movie. I guess my one major complaint with it was at the very beginning of the movie, they kind of made Maxine out to be like this super badass chick, and then that kind of falls away for a little while though. I feel like her character, once like the murder stuff starts happening,
Yeah.
um, she kind of loses her edge a little bit, I thought, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, it does. I think it's a fair observation. I've kind of liked Ty West, the director, for quite a while. I mean, speaking of, we mentioned indie lifers. I kind of feel like he's one of those dudes. And the first thing I saw of his was House of the Devil back from 2009, which I really still like, and I think is kind of an underrated movie. This became more of a trope, but that was the first movie that I saw where it was like someone was really like actively trying to make their movie look like a 70s movie,
Hmm.
which is
I
definitely
still
like,
actually haven't seen this movie. I've put it on a couple times and fallen asleep every time, and I need to I need to get through it.
I mean, I mean, it's one of those things where people would be like, "Oh, this is okay," but I just remember really seeing it back during that time and feeling like, "Wow, this is really cool. This looks like it's the 70s." In a way that I can't really be that excited about now because I kind of feel like there's been tons of movies like that.
Yeah.
Um, but and then his follow up was a movie called The Innkeepers, which I also kind of liked that. Um, I don't know. Maybe we can do a little Ty West like horror movie thing
Yeah. I feel
at
like
some point.
he has enough in his catalog that we could make, a little segment out of it at some point.
Yeah. So
But anyways, I understand the complaints people had with it, but to me, I just liked the vibe of it enough to have it on my list.
yeah. Okay.
So
Very good. What
yeah,
number was that? 9.
that was my number 9. So what's your number 8?
My number 8. I actually did this in a short succession weekend with Maxine. I can't remember if it was around July 4th or something, but there was Lindsay and I, much to her delight, I made 2 movie reservations. Like, I don't know. It was like one of those things where we went on Wednesday night before a holiday or something, and then also on Friday night or something, and it was Maxine and then Yorgos Lanthimos kind kinds of kindness. Have you seen this?
I did not see this.
I mean, it's bizarre and it's too long. It's like 3 hours or whatever, but I found it to be much like you would find his works to be. But I think I liked this even more than Poor Things from last year. I mean, probably
I
my
did see
favorite.
Poor Things. I thought I liked Poor Things. It was very weird, but yeah.
Yeah, although I guess I should probably. I don't know if I might need to walk back that comment because I think I made Poor Things like my number 4 movie of last year, and this is number 8. So I guess maybe that's not true. But this was a better year. So, but I enjoy his movies. I'm not like over the moon about him. Probably The Lobster is my favorite one,
Mhm.
but um, I don't know. Kinds of Kindness is just too hard to explain. I'm not going to explain. It's 3 stories. It has like the same actors playing different characters in those 3 stories. Willem Dafoe is in it. I mean, Willem Dafoe, are we reaching a point where he's just in like every movie?
Dude, yeah. He was in Nosferatu
I
too.
know,
Yeah, he's
which
just
I
in
just watched yesterday.
yeah. Yeah.
But look, his movies are bizarre. They have like absurdist humor, absurdist commentary. But I am always like interested. There's humor, but then it's always like something. There's a message, and you're thinking about it. I'm
Mhm.
not sure that I've fully unpacked this one, but I had a really good time out at the theater, and um, I'll definitely watch this again at some point when I feel like I can, invest the time in it. With these like anthology story movies or whatever, it's always hard because there's always like 1 or 2 stories that you like more than the others. And when you're in the one that you don't want, you just want to be in the other one. So it's always weird with those types of things, and it's no different here. But um, I don't know. Do you like his movies, or
I think Poor Things is the only one that I've seen actually.
have you never seen The Lobster?
Dude, that's another one that I've put on maybe 3 or 4 times and fallen asleep every time. So I need
That's
to
just
watch it.
that one's my favorite of his. But yeah, not much more to say about it because it's such a bizarre movie. I can't explain it. It's not for
Yeah.
everyone. I wouldn't
Yeah.
recommend it to my parents.
Yeah. I was very surprised when we saw Poor Things how much sex there was in the movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of sex in this one too.
Yeah. And this is the one where from the trailers it has Emma Stone doing that crazy dance, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Um, okay, number 8 for you.
My number 8 was Alien Romulus.
Okay, okay, so we
So
got into that
we
already.
kind of covered that one already. I enjoyed it. Um, yeah.
I guess we should mention Fede Alvarez directed it.
Yeah, he did the 2013 Evil Dead, which was cool. So he's kind of like made a name for himself. I don't know if he's announced what he's doing next yet or not, but I feel like there's a sect of the internet that wants him to do another Alien movie,
Well,
and I
could
would be
be.
down with that.
And he also did Don't Breathe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yeah.
is a movie that I've never seen, but for some reason I associate with you and think that you like. Is that true or?
I don't know if we've ever talked about it. This is the one with the guy who's blind and people are trying to rob his house, right? Or am I getting that mixed up with?
That's what I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked it.
Okay.
I mean it was a unique premise for a movie, but I feel
Yeah.
like it was a little bit unbelievable, maybe.
Okay. Liked it, didn't love it.
Yeah,
So
liked it
I
too.
also watched his movie, you know, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movie, The Girl in the Spider's Web. I saw that in the theater. I thought it was like pretty terrible. That was 2018, I think.
Okay.
So, there's hits and misses, but Alien Romulus making both of our lists.
Right, right. All
Okay.
right. So what was your number 7 then?
Number 7 for me, Luca. I never know how to say his last name. Guadagnino?
Guadagnino?
Yeah. Um,
Guadagnino?
yeah, who I really think is one of the like premier directors of this current era. This was a movie that as soon as I saw the trailer, I was like, we're going to see this in the theater. I think they were advertising it through the end of 23 and then it was in the theaters in 24. Of course, I'm talking about the tennis sex movie, Challengers.
Dude,
Have
this
you
is
seen it?
one that I should have watched because I feel like it might have made my list if I watched it, but I just didn't get around to it. You can't watch everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he just brings like a weird sexual element to all of his movies.
Did you see Bones and All? I loved that movie.
I still haven't watched that. I've been putting it off for some reason. You know what? That's in my category of like I haven't put it on to fall asleep, but I'll be like laying in bed and like looking for something to put on, and I'm like, oh, I should watch Bones and All. And I'm like, wait, no, I can't because I'm gonna fall asleep.
Dude, I feel like you'll love it. Just the atmosphere of it. It has this very creepy but beautiful vibe to it. I feel like you'll love it.
I'm sure. I mean, I've really liked his movies. I mean, look, they're not all home runs, but I love Call Me by Your Name. I liked his Suspiria, and I really liked Challengers too. So he's just one of those directors that, and he has another movie out. He does seem to be very prolific too. He has that thing where it's like it feels like he has like 2 movies that come out in a year.
Hmm.
Because didn't he do that Daniel Craig movie Queer?
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either,
Me neither. But
but I heard very good things.
yeah, I'm interested in anything he does, and but yeah, Challengers heavy recommend from me at number 7. Okay, number 7 for you, Keith.
So my number 7, maybe this will surprise you. I don't know if you've seen this movie actually. I don't know if we talked about this together or not, but I saw this in the theater and I loved it. And this is In a Violent Nature.
I have not seen this, so you're gonna have
I
to tell
have
me
it
about it.
in the shrink wrap still.
Wait. Okay.
But this is
Wow.
basically the Friday the 13th like knockoff, but it's you follow the killer basically for most of I mean I guess like the whole movie pretty much. It's mostly
Like,
from his perspective. It deviates at points, but
you get like the Michael Myers point of view shots.
uh well I mean, I don't know if any of it goes like first person, but it's
Yeah.
like there's a bunch of long shots that people complained about where it's like the camera just following him walking for a while,
Yeah.
which I understand it, but I thought that this was a pretty interesting kind of like artsy take on like, like a Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th type movie.
All right. Well, that makes me interested. Did you see that in the theater?
I did, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, cool.
I saw it with Chris and then Chris's friend came with us too actually.
Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah.
Big night
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. But there's like tons of like crazy kills. Anybody who like loves horror movies would probably be super into this. There's some Uh, I feel like one of the kills at least is like iconic now. The yoga kill that was like teased in the trailer.
Okay.
Did you see any trailers even
No.
for this or no? No.
I gotta love how much I feel like I pay attention to this stuff, and you've mentioned two movies that I've never even seen a trailer for.
I feel like you might actually like this because you're a fan of the Friday the 13th movies, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah,
I feel like this is like an artistic take on it. I think you would like
absolutely.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Jason goes to the art house.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I feel like that's a good description of this movie.
All right. Anything else to say on it?
Uh, Not really. No, I think
Mm.
yeah, there's plenty of other videos you can go look at on YouTube or whatever.
I'm
People
gonna
doing
be
deep dives on that movie.
I'm gonna be a man of few words for my next one, which is again another one of these movies where it's like this is one of the things that I hate about doing movie lists. By the way, I mentioned it a little bit earlier. The release dates for movies is like really questionable at times. Like, oh,
I have one on my list that's like it came out in festivals in 2003, but it didn't come out like wide until
wait,
now,
that's not
until
real.
last year.
2003
Not 2000, sorry, 23, sorry.
set on a shelf.
Lindsay, don't put that on the list of errors.
Yeah, already corrected. Um, yeah. So this one was a, I don't know. I don't know if it's a French movie or what, but yeah. Well, it says France and Canada, but like was also a 2023 festival movie, but I think it counts for 2024 lists, or at least it does for mine. Anyway, The Beast. Are you familiar with this movie at all?
I actually bought this movie and fell asleep watching it.
Well, I watched it on Criterion Channel.
Okay.
Something I'm not ashamed to say. Starring Leah Seydoux, who, I went on at length about SZA in the last episode. Yes. All right, good. You've got it.
Yeah.
And it's a
I
great
got
cover.
it. I
That-
will
that's
watch
really
it.
pretty. This was like my pre-SZA crush was Leah Seydoux, and I think I don't know, not last year, but the year before, she was my most logged actress on Letterboxd.
Oh, really?
I was just watching a bunch of her movies. She's actually in like a ton of shit. She's in like,
She was
I mean,
in The French Dispatch, right? I remember
yeah,
seeing
and
her in
she's
that.
in like the last two Daniel Craig Bond movies.
Uh-huh.
She pops up in small roles a lot too. She was in like Midnight in Paris in a small role. Um, she just is in a lot. She's very prolific as an actress and very good as an actress. This is sort of a wild social commentary movie that spans generations. AI is in the mix. And there's a little bit of commentary on like, these modern like kind of the modern male who is having a hard time getting ahead in society. There's just like a lot of elements to this. There's a lot to dig into. Um, it's like spanning centuries, but you're not even 100% clear at certain times if this stuff is really happening or if they're in some sort of inception type world where it's a dream reality. It's not dream, it's like AI, you're in an AI world. So there's a lot happening, but I was really digging it. I want to watch it again. um I do think it was one of my favorite movies of this year, but I do want to give it another. It's just one of those movies where you're like, I feel like I have to watch this again to enjoy everything that's meant to be enjoyed about it. But at a runtime of 145 minutes, Keith, it's like, who's got the time? I could watch Strange Darlings like twice.
Yeah. I think I made it 10 minutes in before I fell asleep.
Well, and there's like some slow stretches in it too, because like at times it's like, what is this, a period piece? Because like I think you start off like, back in the past. There's
Yeah.
like all these like jumps in time. It's a wild movie, but you should like give yourself a shot at a sit down and watching the whole thing, because I do think it was like pretty good.
I will definitely watch it. Obviously, I bought it to watch it, so.
Yeah. All right, Keith, coming in at number 6 for you.
So my number 6 was another Jeremy Saulnier joint.
Oh, he had a
Rebel
movie. I didn't know he
Ridge.
had a movie this year.
I feel like Netflix just dumped this out, and
Wow.
there was like very little chatter about it online, and I didn't see like any ads for it on YouTube that I remember.
Yeah.
but I was just scrolling through one day and I saw it and I was like, Jeremy Saulnier, what?
Yeah, yeah,
Rebel
really.
Ridge?
What's the name of
Um,
this?
it's called Rebel Ridge.
I think I saw this up there. I don't think at least it didn't stick with me that this was him.
They they didn't even do a good job with like the cover art, I don't think. It doesn't it's not very inspiring. It doesn't kind of, jump out and grab you and say this is something I need to watch. So, yeah, but I really liked this movie. Obviously, it's my number 6. The
Yeah.
gist of the movie is it's about this Marine, or he's like an ex-Marine, special forces. He's like a trainer for those dudes, but you don't really know that until a little bit into the movie. But basically, in the very beginning of the movie, he's riding his bike and he has a backpack full of money. And basically, these corrupt cops stop him and end up taking his money. And the money was supposed to be used to bail his cousin out of jail. And I think he was like not not actually guilty of whatever he was in jail for. I don't remember exactly, but anyways, the whole thing is this one dude is like a one-man army, and he's going up against this small town's force of corrupt police officers.
Is there
And
insane violence in it?
there's some violence in it. There's some really good action sequences. I would say one thing that will probably sell you on the movie is Don Johnson plays the chief, and he's
Well,
awesome as this asshole bad chief guy.
as we know, yeah, known Don Johnson fan in me.
You're not a Don Johnson fan? I thought you were.
Oh yes, no, I certainly am. Yes, I've seen Don Johnson's all of his work. I own the complete series of Miami Vice and watch it every night. Uh, yes, no, okay, well and of course, what Keith is referencing is we talked about Jeremy Saulnier's. He's got a tough last name to say. Can you say it?
Saulnier, I think.
Yeah,
Saulnier.
Jeremy Saulnier's Green Room we talked about on the
Hmm.
show. So
Big fans of that movie.
yeah, absolutely. Keith, why don't we do a one of those things where all of a sudden it goes, you could do some sort of graphic here where things like spin around for a second, and now we're gonna like reverse, and now like you'll take over and you give your number 5.
Okay, that works.
I
I'll
don't know
do
if we'll
some
actually have
info.
a graphic, but yeah,
All right.
I'm always thinking that you're gonna do more visual effects with our episodes. Well, I feel like when you do your solo shows, there's like a lot more of a visual element.
Well, my solo shows are like 10 minutes long, and this is like a freaking 2-hour thing. This is
Yeah,
like a freaking 2-hour epic.
you're right, and we got to just pump it out. So, all right,
But
Keith, number 5 for you.
okay, this will probably shock you. Okay, I'm glad you're sitting down. My number 5, my number 5 is The Brutalist.
That doesn't shock me. You
Okay,
think
I
you
thought
think
I thought you would be upset that it wasn't higher.
look, I don't I don't know what I strike you as, but like I don't really I don't get upset where people rank movies. Plus, like I do think The Brutalist is like, holy shit, what an achievement, like wow. But like I get that it's like it's hard to watch and it's
Yeah,
like I mean there's elements of it that you're like, okay, like wow,
yeah.
like
I don't
I
even have. This is the thing, though. All the other movies on my list, I like love a lot. Like
yeah,
these movies are all great. Every one of my top 5, I think, are like absolute. I don't want to say masterpieces, but just really good
yeah.
movies.
I bet you
Um,
we probably have 4 of this, like 4 of our top 5s are the same movies. Not in the same order, but crossover.
it's possible, yeah. So
Because
I
we,
don't even have anything really to complain about. It's just that's when I was making my list, I was like, you know what, this feels like my number 5.
the Brutalist, in my opinion, is like wow. It's just one of these movies that I like. Holy shit, this is such an accomplishment. But I'm also like, look, this is not necessarily the thing that you're like going to the theater and being like, wow, I feel great. This has me
Yeah.
jazzed to go to movies, unless you're just like so appreciative of like the actual like the art of filmmaking side of
Uh-huh.
it.
I will say I was totally sucked into this movie, and I didn't even watch it. I really wish I would have been able to watch it like down here in my, little mini home theater setup. I
Yeah.
ended up just watching it upstairs because I kind of had to be watching the kid at the same time that I was watching it. But I was totally into this movie like the whole time, even though it's super long. I did have to stop it a few times just to, tend to the baby and whatnot, but
Sure.
um, I love one of my favorite things. The score is like amazing.
Yeah, it
Um,
is cool. The score is really cool. I mean, the look of it is
hmm
incredible too.
yeah, and we
I
talked
mean, that,
about it a little bit before. It's shocking that this movie was made for under $10 million.
I know. It
And
seems
Brady
just like
Corbett. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it just seems like such a massive production.
Yeah, and the fact that you've heard the comments that the director Brady Corbett made about how he made no money on it, right?
I know that this was like a long journey for him. I saw his like acceptance speech at the Golden Globes. So I imagine that that whole part in the movie where Adrian Brody's character is like forfeiting
That's what I
his
was gonna bring up. I feel like that was like there's like a parallel between the
sure,
director of the movie and the character in the movie.
agree.
Um,
Yeah,
for sure.
agree.
Like I feel like it's like saying like in order to create something that lasts, you have
Yeah.
to like make these big sacrifices and put your entire, heart and soul into it.
Well, and look, if you want to compare it to like this story to like the movie industry, it's like the Guy Pearce character is like the big studios who are like,
Hmm.
"Hey, we can't, we're not the artists. We just want to fund the art and like be a part of it in that way." I mean,
Hmm.
um, but we want to control you and we'll throw you away when we don't care about you. I mean, there's
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think there's a lot of parallels you can draw there between the movie industry and what's going on in this film.
for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, we probably don't want to get into like spoilers or anything. I will say though, there is one very dark thing that happens in this movie
That is true. Well,
that
more than one.
well, I think you know what I'm talking about when they're
Sure.
in
Is it?
wherever it is they are.
Does it rhyme with grape?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I see. Okay.
I feel like that part maybe wasn't necessary to be in the movie for it to still be great, but other than that, I think this movie's awesome.
Well, it's got brutal in the title for a reason.
True.
Okay, number 5 for me, which if I was a betting man, would say that this is in your top 5. Um, I watched it relatively recently in the past couple of weeks as a rental. It had been on my list to check out. Of course, I'm talking about The Substance.
It's on my
Have you-
list. Yep.
Okay, all right, very good. I I knew I would like The Substance. I did like The Substance. And it's one of those ones where when I'm going in and I already know I'm going to like it, and you get 10 minutes of the movie and you're like, yeah, I'm definitely going to like this. You know, it's working. But the reason why I don't have it even higher is because I did feel like it could have used some tighter editing. Like, I think that the same movie could have been under 2 hours. Like, I think this was like a 2 hour and 20-minute movie.
Yeah, I feel like that's a fair criticism.
Like, I just think
There's
that
a
there
lot
were
of
scenes.
stuff in the build up. I feel like there's a lot of stuff in the build up that could have been shortened for
Yeah.
sure.
Now, look, criticisms aside, it's still my number 5 movie of the year in a year that I
Yeah.
really like movies. So, I mean, this was like 100% for me. I just like, and in a way that I'm sure it was like 150% for you.
Yeah. I mean, the whole final act of this movie was made specifically for people like me who just
Yeah.
love super weird, fucked up, gory, like just. And I thought it was hilarious too, actually. Like the whole
It is.
part where she
Yeah.
rips the painting down or whatever and puts it on her
Yeah.
face and she goes up to the microphone. I was just like, oh my God, is this actually happening?
I know. It does take it to like a whole new level because the first couple acts, it's like this Cronenberg body horror thing with, a lot of commentary on age and beauty, specifically for women in the case of this movie. But then it just becomes this whole other thing for the final
Yeah.
act in a
I
way
feel
that,
like it's super rare for a movie that goes that hard with like the ridiculous practical effects and how goofy it kind of gets at the end.
yeah.
it's rare for a movie that has that in it to also have like a super powerful message as well. Like we aren't really the target audience for like the message, I feel like. We're not aging women. We are, aging dudes, but I feel
Yeah,
like we
who?
don't have we don't have the same pressures put on us that, women do. And I will say that when I'm talking to my wife Chris about it, she loved this movie
Yeah.
kind of for those reasons, really.
Yeah. Well, I'm unfortunately, Keith, you and I have never known what it's like to be beautiful.
Yeah.
So the good news is it's not a hard period of adjustment for us. Um, all right, so that's
I was
my number
born
four.
with ugliness. You merely adopted it.
All right, that was good.
Maybe we'll cut that.
No, I don't think so. That needs to stay. Um, okay, number four for you, Keith.
My number four might also come as a shock. Maybe not. I don't know. Considering your last response to the Brutalist, number four for me was Honora. Sean
Um,
Baker.
I wouldn't say I'm totally shocked. I thought there was a chance that this could be your number one, but you know,
There was, I will say all. Okay, so the top five of mine, love them, but the top four of mine are like any one of them. On a different day, I could have had Honora be my number one.
okay. All right, it's
Um,
good to hear.
But I mean, I don't know. I just love the kind of fake out Cinderella story. Obviously, Igor. I really hope that what's his name, Yuri Borisov. I really want him to win Best
That would be
Supporting
fun.
Actor.
That would be fun
Um,
to see.
I love the message of the movie, how it's kind of hidden and it kind of unravels, towards the end of the movie. We probably don't want to spoil it, really, I guess, but I love
No,
the
and
themes of the movie of, kind of like class and stuff like that. I feel like my takeaway was, yeah, Honora and Igor are kind of like these people looking in and they kind of have this view of like upper class rich people. And at least Honora, she's kind of she struggles with really really wanting to get out of the situation she's in, and it's like devastating when what happens in the movie happens.
oh, for sure. And but I do think that you know, Mikey Madison, the performance of the year, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
I just, she was doing like her Criterion like closet thing where she's, where
Uh-huh.
she's picking movies, and I'm like, she's still in character from this. You want to talk about method acting? I just think that she like became this character and has never. Remember,
Yeah.
that dude as Austin Butler played Elvis in like the Baz Luhrmann movie, and
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw this at all, but he was still talking like Elvis like a year after the movie was done. Like, I think that
I
that's what's
mean,
going on with Mikey Madison right now. Like, she is this character.
yeah. You
Um,
don't think that's just like her natural speaking voice? I don't know.
well, I'm sure to some degree, but I don't know. I do think that it happens. I think it happens with some of these people. Like, you get into this role, and it's hard to go back and be the person you were before it.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
was Lindsay and I, when we were in Key West, had like I don't know why, it just kind of like reminded me of Honora for a second. We were just like walking the main drag. It's 11 a.m. There's a little shack that's a strip joint that's like opening at 11 a.m. And just the one girl out front. Like, there's a group of younger girls walking in front of us, and they kind of like, I don't know, made eye contact or whatever with the woman from the strip club. And I think they were kind of like laughing about it opening up at 11 a.m. And the woman working the strip club like looked out and was like, "Yeah, we're open. Come on in. The early bird gets the worm." And then like Lindsay and I were like the next group of people, and like we're hearing this, and like we start laughing. Then she looks at us and makes eye contact and was like, "Couples welcome." And I was like, "Lynn, should we go in?" Like, I don't know. It was reminding me of like we could have like an Honora movie was about to happen, but we didn't allow it to, unfortunately. Um, okay, so Honora is your number four. Honora is on my list.
Yeah,
Um,
I assume so.
yes.
We can talk
No,
about it more when we get to it on
yeah,
your.
I mean, it got time on the show already because we both talked about it. I don't know, on like episode 2 or something.
Yeah.
So I think it's known that we both really liked it. Number 4 for me, I'm almost 100% certain this is on your list. Watched it recently, streaming on AMC Plus, which I've been canceling some of my streaming services, Keith, because I'm just like, I don't know. A lot of them are starting to have commercials now. I'm like, what's the point? Like,
Hmm.
I don't want to watch a movie with commercials. So
Yeah.
I've been canceling a bunch of them, but I got AMC Plus so that I could rewatch Mad Men for the millionth time because second only to um, Miami Vice, my other favorite show of all time. Not Don Johnson, but the fictional character Don Draper, my other favorite Don. So Lindsay and I have been remaking our way through Mad Men, but streaming on AMC Plus right now, Red Rooms.
Hmm.
Tell me this is on your list.
It is on my list. Did you see? I made a whole 16-minute long video on
Yeah, I
this.
started watching it. Yeah, I was like, yeah. So I guess like, look, if you really want like the insight, you want the full, you need somebody breaking this down and dissecting this movie. Go check out Keith's 16-minute episode. I'm sure like all sorts of cool graphics and video effects in the mix. Yeah, I was watching a little bit of it, but yeah, I mean, it's creepy. It feels very of the time. Um,
Hmm.
it's a master class in just that unsettling tone,
Yeah.
and it goes places that I was just not expecting it to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great movie. Just like one of the most disturbing, psychological thrillers that I've seen in many years.
Yeah.
And such like a unique um, perspective on the movie. Because normally when you get these kind of like courtroom drama, like murder, type movies, like you're not typically following a person who is just obsessed with the case. And I don't know. I thought the movie was great.
No, it is. And look, I mean, I think there's a lot of commentary in it on the culture and reacting to things and like the current time. And even just like this character who is a model, but like is kind of addicted to, online poker on like the dark web, like the places you're going to like buy DVDs or whatever. Um, it's just, I don't know. Everything felt very, real to me. I'm like, as wild as it gets, I'm like, this just seems so seriously real.
Yeah. Well, apparently, I think part of the inspiration that the director had for the movie was these like um, conspiracy theories that these red rooms actually exist, which, I mean, I guess it's possible. Um, I don't
It's one
know.
of those things that it's just like, it's so shakes you to your core to even think that like people are into that.
Yeah, yeah, for
Because the
sure.
movie's disturbing enough on its own, and then it's like it's a whole other level.
Yeah, yeah. Did you notice like the super long one takes? We talked about super long one takes with Children of Men. There's a couple
Oh,
in this movie that are like great.
here I
Um,
was like a fool calling it tracking shots on the last episode. I did not know the generally accepted term was the super long one take.
yeah, you could call it either one. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, there were certainly some of those
Yeah.
in this movie too. Okay, so let's just jump ahead to your number 3.
Okay. My number three was The Substance,
Okay.
which,
Yeah.
we've kind of covered already. Um, what do you think the chances are of The Substance winning Best Picture?
Very low.
I agree. I don't think it's really up there. There was a time, maybe like a week or two period, when I thought maybe it was possible. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
It would be cool. I mean, look, I'm always down for just a wild, like, whoa, I didn't expect that
yeah.
Oscar win, but I don't know. I don't know what the favorite is. I thought was it Honora that won at the Producers Guild?
I
Um,
think so. I feel like Honora is the front runner.
favorite right now. Yeah, but I mean, look, we can talk about it. I, who cares? Who cares what wins? Because it's like sometimes it's I started writing down like for as much as I watch movies, dude, like going back the past 15 years, there are best picture winners that I have never seen. Like
Yeah.
um going all the way back to was it 2010, The King's Speech, which was a movie that like I've never seen The King's Speech. I still feel strongly that The Social Network should have won that year.
Oh yeah,
Um,
heavy agree. I feel like that's just like a thing that happens though, and I don't know if I've thought about this before, and I feel like part of it is probably the people who vote feel like this obligation to praise movies that are underseen and like underappreciated a little bit. Like I feel like if I was a voter, I probably would feel a little bit of a responsibility to like put forth some movies that
sure.
maybe in the future people are going to have forgotten about, you know.
I think that
Um,
happens. And look, I mean, it's just where the culture is at that moment in time, like
mhm.
is what ends up winning. Sometimes it's just like there are ones that people are like, yes, this is undeniably great. The collective agrees, and we're gonna put it forward. But I do think more often than not, it's just sort of like, hey, this thing had its moment right now, and it
Yeah.
happened. It got the votes. So, I don't really. I used to like get really into like rooting for stuff, but you know, it's fun. It's fun to root for stuff, but it's like, ultimately none of this stuff matters. You and me are gonna buy all these movies either way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where were we? Number three.
That was my number 3. Yeah.
Okay, my number three, and this is one that I just feel like I don't know if people just felt like it was disappointing, but I noticed it's not on a lot of lists. But I gotta tell you, I had a hell of a great time watching it in the theater. And of course, I'm talking about Nicole Kidman in Baby Girl.
Dang, I needed to watch this one too. I haven't got to it yet.
Well, listen, I don't know. You might think it's like not that great, but I just found it like not this good. The movie that I'm gonna say, people are gonna be like, what? That's the one that you're holding up so high? But I kind of felt like in the camp of Basic Instinct. Like, it's not really a thriller, but it is heightened.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
the energy's up. But it's like Basic Instinct I watch and I am just like so entertained. Like I am just so entertained by it. And Baby Girl, I'm not there. I'm not Basic Instinct, but like I just thought it was of that ilk where I'm like, hey, I think it's cool to present these stories that we don't normally get. I'm always interested in like sides of humans that aren't always explored. And it's like, okay, look, a woman with a little bit of kink. Okay, come on. I don't think there should be any shaming going on here other than, she's a married woman, which is, that part's not great. But it's just the way it's presented. I just found it to be so entertaining. And, much like as we talked about earlier, Cronenberg's Crash. I'm just interested.
Mhm.
I don't want to be a part of this, but I'm interested. And but I really thought,
Was it
look,
pretty steamy? Was there a lot of steamy stuff?
I thought it was steamy. I mean,
Okay.
look, I think that you could make the argument that it's underwhelming because the trailer like really built it up, and it's
Yeah.
like, they can only go so far,
A24 is selling like dog collars and stuff.
which is
I'm like,
hilarious.
how
But
steamy does this movie get?
yeah,
Does she wear a dog collar at any point? You can spoil it for me.
I don't think there was a dog collar involved. I think there was like a,
Okay.
yeah, no, no
Okay.
dog collar involved in my memory. But I did pre-order the Blu-ray or the 4K. I'm not sure which, but yeah, it's pre-ordered, so it'll show up. So the next time you're here, instead of Cronenberg's Crash,
All
we will
right.
watch Baby Girl. Baby Girl is probably a top 5 movie that I want to watch with you when you come over to my house. Okay.
All right. There's no way I'm waiting until then to watch it. I'll definitely be watching it like as soon as it's, I don't know,
Yeah. Um,
available.
When I said that 4 of our 5 will at least be like the same movies, that was the one that I figured you did not have because I was pretty sure you hadn't seen it yet.
Hmm.
But Baby Girl is a heavy recommend for me, and all the people that said it wasn't that great. I mean, I didn't have a better day out at the theater this year than Baby Girl.
Not even with the SZA movie.
Okay, yeah, well, that was 2025.
Oh yeah, okay, okay.
So your number 2, Keith.
So my number 2 was Red Rooms, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And you also did a 16-minute video on.
and I did a 16-minute video on. So if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts of the movie, go check that out.
Yeah. Number 2 for me is The Brutalist. I love how,
Okay.
like, as we get to the top, it's like we're running out of steam because we've already talked
Yeah.
about these. Yeah, I mean, listen, I talked about it on another episode, but look, I guess it's just this. It's a spectacle of a movie. I love these ones that are just like an event, and I mean, it's so well crafted. I mean, you can't argue with it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of messaging in there that's worth thinking about.
For sure.
That being said, Keith, I'm gonna give my number 1, and we'll do the revert back again here.
Okay.
Twist the, play the record backwards or whatever. Because my number 1 is Anora.
Okay.
Okay. And I do think that Anora was the movie that I liked the most this year, as seen by me putting it number 1 on my list. And yeah, I mean, look, there's probably nothing more for me to say about it, but I just, it was the most fun I had. I was the most emotionally invested in it of anything that I watched. I just love these stories about, niche pockets of people in the world. I mean, in this, we have a stripper and like a super rich, foreign kid like that. It's just really not people that you're running into every day. And it becomes its own adventure that's filled with peaks and valleys, certainly. And then probably my favorite ending of any movie this year. So, or of 24.
I'm not gonna call anybody out, but I watched a YouTube video earlier where somebody said that Honora was emotionally devoid.
Wow.
I was like, how can you have that opinion?
I was weeping.
Yeah, I don't know. A
I mean,
crazy hot take there, but that's the only time I've heard anybody say anything like that about this movie, so I was shocked to hear that. But
I could at least like acknowledge like there's a coldness. You know what I mean? There's definitely a coldness.
I would say, yeah, there's a sadness, kind of just in Honora's like desperation of like she had it in her hands, like this escape from, poverty and like her sad life or what she thinks is sad. I don't know. You could talk about the themes of the movie, for days. But
Yeah. I mean, look, ultimately, I think she ended up net positive at the end of the movie because
yeah,
why would you want to keep hanging out with these rich people?
yeah. I mean, they're terrible. Yeah, that's part of the message too, I think. Yeah, she'll be much happier with the other dude.
All right, Keith, why don't you bring us home with your number 1 movie of 2024?
So my number 1 was Alex Garland's Civil War.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
this didn't even make my list.
I thought this might be a little shocking to you, but to me, I think the reason why is I just think it's a super entertaining movie for one, and for two, I also think it's actually a very important movie that people are not talking about. I think it has zero chance. Isn't it like nominated for Best Picture?
It might be for Best Picture. I think it has a couple of nominations. And let me say a few things about this from my perspective. I was extremely interested in this movie. Like my level of interest was super high. First of all, I thought the trailers and all the marketing material for this was like brilliant. Like I thought this was like one of maybe the best marketed movie of the year. It was released earlier in the year, which made me feel like, do they not think it's going to be like it's an election year, and it's a very divisive election year. Like, why aren't they releasing this more? A, it could be like in line with the election, and B, how about that? I'm actually giving a B after an A. B, like this could happen while there's like a lot of controversy going on. So I thought that was interesting. It made me feel like they weren't that thrilled with it. I really like Alex Garland overall. Um,
Mhm.
my favorite movie that he directed is Ex Machina, and it's kind of been a little up and down in between. But I thought this looked really good. I did think the performances were really strong, but um, the whole Jesse Plemons scene was definitely like the most intense moment of the
Oh yeah.
movie.
I'm kind
Um,
of a little upset that they used so much of that in the trailers too,
I agree.
because
I agree with that.
that was the moment of the movie, I thought, and
Yeah,
they kind of watered it down a little bit by having it in the trailer, but I
I
still
agree.
thought it was a super powerful moment in the movie.
Yes, I would agree with that too. So I'm not shitting on this at all. I'm just telling you from I felt a little my experience with the movie was I was a little let down. I had really high hopes for this and I felt a little
That's
I don't
totally
know.
understandable. What were you let down? Were you expecting there to be more action or more drama or
I'm not quite sure. I don't know how to articulate it. I guess I found myself less engaged with the characters than I was expecting to be.
Mhm. That's
Um,
fair.
but I loved the idea. I loved the concept of it.
So I think the reason why it's number one for me is just like I said, like I feel like the message of the movie is super important. Like nowadays, like there's all this talk of like fake news and this and that, and like that I worked in local news for a
Oh
long
yeah.
time, and that's what I kind of connected with it on that level.
Right.
Um, and I really liked how it was almost. I feel like it was kind of sneakily marketed. Like I feel like it was kind of marketed as if it was going to be like this big action epic.
True.
Um, but then the story, obviously you just follow these journalists, which there's some action to be had like towards the end of the movie, but there's definitely parallels between some certain politicians now and um
I'd
I
say
don't know.
so.
I think it's an important movie. Has a good message
Yeah.
and
And listen, I'll definitely give it another go. I mean, this is definitely one that I walked away from it being like, look, I feel a little let down for my first viewing, but I do think that Alex Garland is a super interesting and talented. Uh, I mean, I know I think he wrote books. I think he's wrote screenplays. He's directed movies. Like he's in most of his work, I'm interested in, and I think this is super high quality. So it's very well one that is like could evolve over time for me. I don't know. My first viewing, I was a little bit like I don't know. I've just felt myself hoping for a little bit more, and I don't know what that is.
yeah, I can understand that. Yeah. I feel like I might have been a little bit underwhelmed by it when I first watched it too, but I rewatched it twice actually since, and
Okay.
each subsequent viewing I liked it a little bit more and a little bit more. And even when I was making my list, I was kind of like, do I want to put this at number one? And I thought about it and I just decided, yeah, I think this is my number one for this year.
Love it. All right. Well, that's it. Those are the top tens of 2024. One thing that I will say that I've like started to do, I haven't like actually made lists of this yet, but like I've started to like look back in time and like think about like my list of that year now, and I'll just say that it does change. So, it could be one of these things that we do. Um, I was thinking for the show, maybe at times, maybe we'll just pick a year and be like, let's do our top 10 list of that year now.
That'd be
Um,
fun. Yeah.
yeah, that's something we could do. But I would never put it past myself that it's like my list for 2024 a few years from now is different than it is right now.
Yeah. No, yeah. Your opinions on stuff can change. That's totally fine. Do you want to
Okay.
run through some notable omissions real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Just fire some off, like some movies that I really liked but I didn't have on my list were Furiosa. I loved Furiosa. I
Okay.
thought it was awesome.
I haven't watched Furiosa, but I did like Mad Max Fury Road quite a bit. So,
And me and Chris actually watched Furiosa on our honeymoon. It was like a
very
dreary
romantic.
day.
Yeah.
It was like a dreary day, and we had gone to like the beach and done some, museum stuff, and it was later on, and we were just looking for something to do, and we are like, let's go watch Furiosa. And I had no expectations going into it. I feel like I heard that it was kind of underwhelming for a lot of people, but I really liked it, so I toyed with having that be my number 10, but I decided, I thought Hundreds of Beavers would be a little better.
Well, it certainly was
Uh,
worth talking about.
yeah. And then also, yeah, you had Strange Darling on your list. I really liked Nosferatu. I thought it was really cool, but it just didn't make my list.
Yeah, I just watched Nosferatu yesterday. There were parts of it that I was like, yes, like I'm really digging this. And then the hard part with that story is like, it's the same story, like there's a lot of people that could watch this and be like, wow, the production value of this is way better than like Francis Ford Coppola's like Bram Stoker's
Yeah.
Dracula.
If you've seen Dracula, if you've seen Nosferatu,
But
you
yeah, but I like Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like
yeah.
it's kind of like I never understood those people. When I was watching Nosferatu last night. This is exactly what I thought about. I never understood those people that were like, I love Tim Burton's Batman's better than Christopher Nolan's, and I was always like, really? But like, I kind of get it now because I'm like, I think I like Bram Stoker's Dracula,
Yeah.
the Francis Ford Coppola one better than this Nosferatu.
Mhm.
And it's like, but the production quality of this one is like much better and like
Yeah.
weirder and more twisted. But like, I don't know. It's just you have your version of it, and there were definitely parts of Nosferatu that I was like, hell yeah, wow, this is like so weird and twisted, and I'm into it. But there were other parts where I was kind of feeling like it was dragging on a bit.
Yeah.
What did you think of the overall, the Orlok character, like that presentation of that character?
I thought it was badass. Like I loved the mustache and all that. Like and then when you see him like at the end when you see his like rotten body, it's like gross.
It is gross. I liked the weird breathing, like the gross breathing. I didn't love the voice as much.
Yeah, I kind of found it a little bit hard to understand him a little bit in the beginning, especially. Yeah. And I also I thought the cinematography in a lot of it was amazing, but I was having a hard time making out what was going on in the beginning of the movie too, kind of.
Yeah, that's true. Agreed. But on the Willem Dafoe commentary, because Shane's actually texted me about this a little bit, and I have been feeling this way where it's like, look, Willem Dafoe is an all-time great, like, just one of those weird, quirky guys to like pop up and be in shit, but like he has been in. You get like a little overkill the last few years. It seems like he just pops up in everything anymore. And but I will say this: I don't know what the name of the character is in Nosferatu. It's the Van Helsing role. I thought it was great pick for that. Like, I thought it was perfect for that. Just like he was perfect for that the weird lighthouse role. Like, those are my two favorite Willem Dafoe roles over the past 5 years. And he's been in a ton of shit, but those are my two favorites.
Where are you on Robert Eggers overall? Can I ask you what you're ranking? Because he only has 4 movies.
Yeah, you and
just
me
real quick. What's your ranking?
You and me are going to be the complete opposite on this.
All right, let's hear it.
It's The Witch, The Lighthouse, Nosferatu, and The Northman. Is that it?
Northman is your bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Kind of close. So The Northman's my number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2 is probably Nosferatu. No. What are the other 2? Oh my god. I'm having a brain fart.
The Witch and The Lighthouse.
Okay, no, Lighthouse is number 2.
Okay.
Then Nosferatu, then The Witch. Yeah.
Okay, so we matched on The Lighthouse at number 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I asked some of my buddies, and their lists were the actual flip-flop of mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I think is common. I think a lot of people think The Witch is like his best movie.
Yeah, you can't understand the dialect in it, though.
Yeah.
Overall, I think he's like a really talented director that does his thing really well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Whatever that is, I can't really explain it. These weird,
it is like
horror movies,
modern gothic. I feel like you would,
Is there anything else on your list that you want to make sure you hit on as an omission?
No, I really liked Love Lies Bleeding, but not good enough to be on the list.
Yeah. I was disappointed with Love Lies being. I talked about that in the last episode. A Complete Unknown. I did like. I think James Mangold is the right director to make that kind of movie. It's weird because he also directed the Johnny Cash movie, Walk the Line. Johnny Cash is also a character in this movie. Did you end up watching A Complete Unknown?
I did not. I thought about trying to see if it was on VOD last night, but I decided to watch The Last Waltz instead.
Yeah, I love The Last Waltz too. I mean, I think you're pretty much watching A Complete Unknown for the Timothy Chalamet performance. I think that's it.
Mhm.
That's the selling point. That's the main reason to watch it because Bob Dylan's story, I mean, to me, is not that interesting. Like,
Yeah.
I thought it was good, and I think that's a part of it, right? And it's called A Complete Unknown. I don't think it's. I think there's a little double meaning there. I mean, it's like you're a complete unknown, you're a nobody, but it's also like there's a lot of mystery to him. He's kind of
Yeah.
enigmatic, and like so you don't really get that much about him other than he's a little bit of a contrarian. He does, he keeps kind of changing along the way, and it's one of the things that made him like a great musician. But like story wise, it's hard to feel like you are that interested in this guy.
Yeah.
And then I guess, Wicked. I liked Wicked. Yeah, but I think that's it. There were still a few other things that I wanted to see but didn't. But that's okay. I think we've beat this segment into the
Yeah.
ground. So let's get the
All right.
spotlight.
All right, that puts cap on our top 10s. Matt, why don't you lead us into the spotlight for this episode?
All right, Keith. February 26, 2017. A day, Keith, that will live in infamy. At the center of our story is Bonnie and Clyde themselves, the hero and heroine of the new Hollywood, Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway, presenting the award for Best Picture of 2016 at the Oscars. Moments of awkwardness during the envelope opening would only get far worse. It had been an interesting award season as culturally the Oscars so white backlash was being loudly heard, with La La Land sort of becoming the primary target. While I do think La La Land had some understandably hateable qualities, it still put up a strong showing, coming into the night with 14 nominations and taking home 6 awards. Moonlight, on the other hand, had kind of been more quietly beloved, most notably the Mahershala Ali performance garnering a lot of acclaim heading into the night. I can remember seeing Moonlight in the theater by myself, something I'm not ashamed to admit. Trust me, I've had far worse stories of solo movie trips. What stood out to me most was the artistic choices and unique story structure. I recently listened to an interview with director Barry Jenkins in which he described his film as one that would, quote, take the art house to the hood. From score to camera work to color palette, Jenkins pulled out all the stops to cultivate an artistic approach to the coming-of-age story of the Sharon character, with a relatively small budget. La La Land, on the flip side, felt like a big studio movie, even if a $30 million budget is ultimately pretty modest. It had big stars in Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, and the city of Los Angeles had a presence that loomed so large, it might as well have been the third name on the bill. There were big musical numbers and a crisp, vibrant look. I also saw this in the theater while dating, my now wife. Heading into the Oscars that year, I wasn't really pulling for either of these movies. I actually really loved the Mike Mills feature, 20th Century Women, that year. I really thought Annette Bening was phenomenal, but that wasn't even nominated for Best Picture, c'est la vie. I did, however, like both of these movies pretty equally and for different reasons. Regardless, something horrible happened when they finally got to Faye Dunaway making the announcement. Look, some people are afraid of heights. Some people are afraid of spiders. I have a fear of cringe moments happening. Cringeophobia, if you will. One shudders at the thought. And unfortunately, on that fateful February night, La La Land was announced as Best Picture. As seemingly the entire cast and crew gathered on stage, speeches started to be made, only to be interrupted and informed that they didn't actually win. Moonlight won. Now look, I'm very happy for the Moonlight crew, but the cringe of the moment was just intolerable for me. I just wanted to hide on the other side of the couch. I think I physically jumped over the couch. I could not take it. Literally years of therapy for me to recover from this moment. So here we are on the 8-year anniversary to celebrate these two timeless films. Okay, Keith. So you had seen neither of these movies until I said we should do these for the episode, right?
Yeah, I had not. I enjoyed one of them.
Really? Okay, so
Yeah.
you may be surprised on my experience with these, but so I have the other piece of physical media for this episode for me. Can you see this? I have a La
Is
La
that a
Land.
steelbook?
Yeah, it's pretty cool too.
Oh, it's got the little plastic slippy too.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, little. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So, I was probably, I'll tell you this, in 2016 or whatever, when I saw both of these movies in the theater, I was probably like 4-star on both of them. Like, felt like they were both like A minuses. You know what I mean? Like that was my initial reaction to both of these movies. So what was your initial reaction to both of these movies?
Moonlight, I really dug. I liked Moonlight a lot. I just
Yeah,
like those kind of stories about, I- just poor kids growing up rough, I guess. I don't know. I connect with those movies.
yeah,
La La Land, maybe saying I didn't like it was a bit harsh. I'm just not a big musical fan.
I get
I
it. Yeah,
did enjoy, the relationship, and I liked I actually really liked the ending, how
the
kind of
ending was good.
like
Yeah,
much of a downer it is. So like we both kind of just like downer movies, I feel
for
like.
sure, for sure.
And when Ryan Gosling's playing piano and they're going through the whole like revisiting like their whole how their lives could have been, I guess, if they wouldn't have deviated at that one point.
Yeah, I
You
do
know what I'm
like
talking
that
about?
quite a
Like
bit. Yeah,
I
no,
really liked that, even though it's very sad.
yeah, I think Lindsay was like weeping, and we had to like sit in the theater for a minute. No,
Yeah.
and by the way, I'm not making fun of her. Normally, it's me. Normally, I mean, I literally am like tears streaming down my face for like every
Yeah.
movie. Like Baby Girl ending, I'm like a complete blubbery mess. I'm like
Hmm.
Michael Caine in The
Yeah.
Dark Knight.
I will
Uh,
say the opening scene though, I was almost like, dude, I don't know if I can do this. Like,
well, I remember that year it came out. Zach and I saw it separately, and he said he was like that opening musical number that they do. He was
mhm,
like, "What is it?" Because he also doesn't like musicals, and he was like, "What is this like?" But
yeah,
then he said he was fine with like the rest of the movie after that, because that's like that opening number is the most like in your face, like we're being a
yeah.
musical. Um,
It feels more like a play. I will say though, I can super appreciate stuff like that for like the technical aspects of it because
yeah,
thinking about how hard it must have been to like plan that whole sequence out must have been insane for like how to move the camera around and make sure everybody's moving at the same like hitting their
well,
spots and stuff like that is super impressive. I just am not a fan of, musicals, so
yeah. Well, I'll tell you this: the first time I walked away from it, I liked the movie, but I didn't think the songs were great. Like it. I, I'm not necessarily a huge musical fan either, but you heard me like swooning over Defying Gravity from Wicked. It's like if a song is like catchy and getting stuck in my head, then I'm like, okay, yeah, I like it. But none of these songs were really all that catchy for me the first time I saw it. Now, Smash Cut 2, I I have these songs in my playlist. I have the record on vinyl. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
I'm into this movie now, but it's been a journey for me, as noted. Like, I always thought it was solid. I think I've logged it like 3 times on Letterbox, which doesn't count the time I saw it in the theater. And I was like, it's another one of these successive 4, 4.5, 5 in succession. Like,
Mhm.
because I was just it, but it's not necessarily the musical element for me. I'm kind of a sentimental dude, and like the whole story of the following your dreams and the sacrifices that um these characters make in pursuit of their dreams and ultimately achieving their dreams, but it's like they don't get the fairy tale, love story between the two of them. I care less about the relationship side. What La La Land represents, and the idea of like Los Angeles in general, is just being this place where you go to pursue your dreams. I mean, it hits for me. All right,
Yeah.
like it really does, and that part just um, hits for me more and more with every viewing. And like when she does her little one-man show and it's a disaster and nobody's there and it's like she's so beaten down she's like gonna leave
Hmm.
Hollywood and give up the dream of pursuing an act as or pursuing her career being an actress. And then he gets the phone call from the lady that went to go see her, and he's got to go get her and drag her back, and but ultimately they're never able to have a relationship again.
Yeah.
It gets me, all right.
I did enjoy that. I enjoyed that part for sure.
Um, but it is weird, like the overall like La La Land Moonlight thing. Like it's just when I talked about it earlier, like it's this moment in time. Like if La La Land had just come out like 2 years earlier or whatever, like it could have been this beloved movie. And look, it was a successful movie. It was a hit. It did win a bunch of awards, but there was a lot of backlash for it, like heading in. And it was almost like such a good thing for the culture that Moonlight won that year
Hmm.
because, there was this big backlash with the Oscars so white thing and everything. But it is like it was like La La Land was like an unfair villain at the time. Like it wasn't really fair
Yeah.
because like
I
ultimately
feel
people
like
were
the
like,
director handled that super well though.
yeah, he seems
Um,
like I mean, that Damien Chazelle, like
Damien Chazelle, yeah, that's his
yeah.
name. Yeah.
I mean, look, not like I really know any of these people, but he seems like a generally good guy and like just a you know
Hmm.
passionate filmmaker who does quality work. By the way, like Whiplash, is a good movie. First Man, I mean, may not be like the greatest from like a storytelling perspective that you'll ever see, but like the production level of it is really great, and it was like one of the influences on Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer.
Hmm.
Um, at least I read that somewhere. I don't want I don't want to speak for him, but um, so I do think he's a really great director. Um, and then he makes Babylon, which I wanna wrap up with Babylon towards the end of this because I think there's a little bit of this whole La La Land Moonlight debacle that maybe led into in the backlash on La La Land leading up to it that maybe a little bit led into some of the ideas that he wanted to portray in Babylon. But honestly, if you want to cross over the two, La La Land and Moonlight, I do think that these are ultimately two movies about identity and finding one's identity. Of course, in La La Land, it's two people who are very much wrapped in like who what I am defines me, and I'm
Hmm.
ultimately trying to be this thing, and I'm willing to sacrifice whatever along the way to achieve my ultimate goal because it's my identity. It's owning a jazz club. It's being an actress. On the flip side, Moonlight is, it's a gay black man who came from a rough neighborhood, was bullied growing up and, is kind of hiding that part of himself as an adult when we get to that part of the movie and ultimately ends up with the positive ending. The weird thing about these two movies is, you know, Kev and Sharon kind of, at least from the movie perspective, get the fairy tale ending. And then me and Sebastian and La La Land do not, which I think is
Hmm.
the opposite of what you'd expect, right?
Yeah, from the overall tones of like the rest of the movie, you would think that, I think probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Moonlight, I like quite a bit. So I said that La La Land has become a 5-star movie for me. It wasn't, and it's become one. Moonlight, I just don't have enough experience with at this point to be for me to give it a 5-star. I'm probably a 4.5 right now, because this was watching it for this episode was the first time I rewatched it since the theater. Um, but if I have any complaints about Moonlight, it's this: I really want more of the Marshala Ali character.
Oh yeah, he was awesome as the like mentor that he needed, and I do think it's a really uh I like that. I like what they do with him. How he just kind of like dies and it's off screen and you just kind of it's when the time jumps or whatever, right? The
Yeah,
first time jump.
and it's never explained, like what
Yeah,
happened
I
to him.
I really like that, but at the same time, like you're saying, I do wish we got more of him
Yeah,
for
well,
sure.
even him with the young Sharon character, like I'm sort of a sucker for like in Game of Thrones when like the Hound and Arya were like going around together. I'm like a sucker for
Oh
these like
yeah.
odd couple, like these odd pairings, and like, I
Uh-huh.
think there's obviously a lot of sweetness in the Mahershala Ali character, who's like taking this kid under his wing, even though like the kid barely talks, and like,
Mhm.
they make a little connection where it's like, I think he recognizes that Sharon's mom is a drug addict, and maybe he had a similar type relationship with his
Yeah.
mom. There's definitely like some reasons as to why he's taking him under his wing, but I just would have liked to see more with those two characters. But I actually think the best segment of Moonlight, even though I love Marshall Ali in the first part, I like the middle part the most. I think that kid that plays Sharon during the middle part is so good.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to watch the bullying stuff.
Yeah.
Anytime that that's in a movie, it's just really hard for me to watch. It's just like, it's just so brutal. Like kids are the worst. Like,
Yeah, for sure. So glad that
um,
time's over. I mean, I didn't
yeah,
really get bullied like that, but yeah,
sure, sure, yeah.
it's easy to connect with a character like that for sure.
Well, I was like the new kid. I was like the new kid like a couple times in my life,
Yeah.
and it's like, I'm cool, of course. So like, luckily,
I was gonna say, I feel like you slid right into our school.
yeah. I mean, no, I mean, I was there. You know, let's be honest. Like you and me became friends my senior year. You were a junior, but I
Yeah, I
was
guess
there.
I didn't
Yeah,
know you the first year probably, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a sophomore. You were a freshman. Well, really, for 2 years, you didn't know me.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, it wasn't always, hey, everybody wants to hang out with Matt because he's a cool dude that knows a bunch about movies. It wasn't always that. But yeah, I just look, obviously I never had anything that bad, but it's just rough. I mean, but I do think that kid that plays Sharon in the second act is really good. Um,
I thought the older version of him too. I was just looking him up on IMDb too. Trevante Rhodes, I think, the guy that plays the oldest version of him.
yeah. Yeah.
I thought he did such a good job, especially the whole like diner scene and all that. Like, I don't know, he did
Yeah.
a really good job of like, I don't know, portraying himself as this kind of like tougher version of himself, hardened from going to jail or whatever. And
Right. But it's like, but he's also found peace to some degree. Like
hmm
his mom's doing much better at that point. He's like grown into himself, but he does carry around this secret still,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And it's like this is his moment to actually finally, come to terms with that and um, explore this relationship with this person, Kev, who he grew up with, and there's been this ongoing connection that they're finally able to explore. One of the funny parts in Moonlight that doesn't actually happen in the movie, but was funny to me is the part when they're in the diner and Kev goes up. It was like, oh, this guy played this song on the jukebox. It made me think of you. And then he goes up to play a song on the jukebox. I was like immediately thinking of like what would be the funniest song if he played it. Like it's just like Slayer starts playing. I was like, you could make like some pretty great memes out of that. But yeah, I think what hit me a little bit more the second time, and I could tell the first time in the theater, I was like, wow, this is like I talked about that Barry Jenkins quote where it's like bringing the art house to the hood or whatever, but it's like it is a very artistically shot movie. The camera is moving in all sorts of different ways that sort of coincide with the feeling of that scene. Like when
hmm
he's little and he's with Juan and Teresa, the camera moves is moving really slowly, like it's really warm. But then, like when he's like with the other kids being bullied, it's like very erratic and like shaky cam. Um,
hmm
the score is also changing with the mood of things. Like sometimes it's like this classical music, and other scenes it's like this really like discordant. Um, I don't know what you would call it, but it's very uneasy music and
hmm
lot with something that I think is worth noting for both movies, though, in terms of crossover, the color palette. I think they both have really strong color palettes in their own way.
hmm
Did that jump out to you at all? I mean, they were both heavy on like the actual color in the scenes.
I guess I didn't notice it as much
No.
in Um, in La La Land, I think I noticed it, but not as much in Moonlight.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Give it
feel like
a
parts of La La Land had that like Technicolor. You know, like the image from the poster of them like
yeah,
dancing like with the city lights behind them. I thought that was
right.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Moonlight has a bunch of stuff too. If you
I'd have
next
to
time you watch
rewatch
it,
it.
yeah, pay attention because there's a bunch of like, well, even like the end, because I think Juan says something about looking blue in the moonlight, and then the last shot of the movie is
Hmm.
Sharon Young again, and I think you're just supposed to leave the movie with like a warm feeling because
Yeah.
they've finally gotten this opportunity to pursue this thing,
Hmm.
and you cut back to him as a kid, and he kind of looks back at the camera, and he's in the moonlight, but it's like a warm feeling to for a
Hmm.
character who had a very rocky journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, this might be a little, I don't know how you want to word it, but I feel like you know how I said Civil War is like an important movie? I feel like
Yeah.
Moonlight is also a very important movie because how many stories do you have about a gay black male from, you know, a rough neighborhood? Like how many stories are there out there? Like how
Right.
important do you think this movie is to any gay little boy, you know?
Which is why ultimately it's like, look, as horrific as a thing as it was that the people from La La Land thought they won and then they had it ripped away. I do
Yeah.
think it's really cool that this won Best Picture this, and it was like this culturally significant moment, and it is good. Like the whole thing where people were kind of campaigning against La La Land a little bit. It's like, look, I get behind the whole let's push movies of diversity more, let's push stories that don't normally get told. Absolutely, and I think we need to keep moving in that direction. But it's like that doesn't mean we have to vilify the other people either for like making that
Yeah.
like I
I'm
don't
not aware of like this anti-campaign that you're talking about. I don't think I was as in tune with the Oscars at this point
yeah
in what 2016 this year. Is that
yeah
what year this was?
yes
But
yes. So the event was 2017, but the movies were 2016.
yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely like just prominent at the time, and
Yeah.
just whatever the internet culture stuff that you see.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was just one of those things. Now, look, I ultimately didn't tarnish La La Land or anything, but it just sort of was.
Yeah.
It had this run of being like faux pas to like be rooting for it and be like, oh,
Yeah.
Um, but that's the thing. Ultimately, it's really cool that Moonlight did win. But boy, what a horror show that this happened, though. I mean, the fact that like two of the producers or whatever get through their speeches and then they're like on to the third guy. I loved that guy. I loved how he was just like, "We lost, by the way."
Yeah.
He gets like one sentence out and he just goes, "We lost, by the way." Like everyone realizing like what's
Yeah. I
happening,
mean,
and then
could you imagine being in that position where you think you won like the most prestigious award that you could possibly win and then having it taken away? Like that would be
I kind of can because it kind of seems like the most on brand thing for me.
What would your reaction be? You'd just be like, "Oh."
I probably would be like I actually think that guy saying like we lost, by the way, that's very me. Like that probably would have happened, but
Yeah.
like I I really though probably would have been the second guy who was like talking about Emma Stone's character because you're not enough of a La La Land fanatic like I am to know that like the song that she performs when they're going to give her a movie role is like the lyrics are "Here's to the fools that dream," and he starts referencing that, and he's like, I was a fool that was a dreamer, and I'm so glad I did it. And then it's like, well, wait, like, my dreams are coming true, and it's like, not so fast. Just brutal. And I mean, I've gotten better about this stuff, but dude, in 2016, I just could not take how cringe this whole moment was.
Well,
And you knew
do you think it's been overshadowed now by the slap?
that's true. That actually was also very rough to just
Yeah.
it's a rough experience because I mean, you talk about awkwardness in the room.
Yeah, we were watching that live and thinking like, is this like a skit?
Well, that's
I
the way
think
I
this
felt.
is
I
a
think
skit.
everybody, yeah, I mean, everybody was like, is this real or not? I mean, like, but it just
Yeah.
felt like I think you could tell by Chris Rock's reaction.
Yeah.
'Cause it
And
was,
then I think I saw videos come out like the next day of like because I think they might not have actually shown that much of Will Smith like yelling at him, like keep my wife's name out of your mouth or whatever,
yeah,
like all that stuff. When you saw him and you could see like how actually angry he was, it's like
yeah.
ooh.
No, they did show that in the live event.
They did? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the
I'm just
camera did pan
misremembering.
over when he was saying that, and then they cut away
Yeah,
from
yeah.
him,
And
'cause
then how awkward do you think it would have been being in that room? Because Will Smith won that year too.
No, I
Best
know. And then he
best
went back
actor.
up on stage and had this, like,
Yeah,
emotional, like, you know,
he,
speech, like,
yeah.
thanking, and I was just like everyone
I
was
mean,
like
yeah, this La La Land Moonlight thing was like a little bit of a bummer, but I
Yeah.
feel like the slap was much more of a stain on the Academy overall.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, it's just like, I don't know what the deal is, like, it's just bizarre, but I still don't know. The La La Land Moonlight thing almost felt like it had to be staged, because 'cause you're like,
Yeah,
how did they mess up? I mean, you've tracked this enough where it's like they somehow have the Emma Stone La La Land, like, card in the Best Picture envelope,
yeah.
and so, like, Warren Beatty pulls it out,
You
and he's
could
like,
tell that he knew something was wrong.
"Right, right,"
You
and then he
you
just
could
shows
tell.
it to Faye Dunaway, and she's like, "La La Land."
Yeah. And you notice how he came back out
Yeah,
afterwards to try to explain and be like, I'm sorry, and she did not.
yeah, jeez, what a just a wild night.
I'm
Yes.
sure she was probably just embarrassed, but
No, I know. And like, what are you supposed to do? It's not her fault.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, what you think you're supposed to have the right card. How do you not have the right card? I don't know. Like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, some operations manager for the Oscars needs to be fired.
Yeah, when you see the guys with the headsets come on stage and start like looking at the envelopes, you're like, oh no.
Yeah, like, how can this be? But yeah, it was just a for those of us that have a hard time with cringe, that was a rough one. So, um, but it's like that was a pretty good year for movies when I looked back, because like I mentioned, I don't know if you've ever seen 20th Century Women, but I think that's like a pretty good movie. I really liked that year.
I don't think
Um,
so. I was looking at the other nominees. I really liked Arrival from that year.
yeah, Arrival was really good. That's a movie
Hell
that
or
I
High
probably
Water
yeah, Hell
was
or High
awesome.
Water was really good. Yeah, I mean, overall that was a really good year.
Manchester by the Sea for the Sad Boys.
Yeah, that's one that I've seen in the theater and I've never watched again, but I
Yeah.
did like it.
Yeah,
But
that was a one and done for me as well.
yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, ultimately, when something like when we're talking about like something really bad happening, Manchester by the Sea is my go-to reference. You know what I mean? It's just like it's
Yeah,
about to be like Manchester by the Sea in here.
yeah.
I did. Lindsay was randomly. We were talking about La La Land last night, and she was looking at my old reviews, and there was a part where I wrote something that just made me laugh, like thinking about it now. Um, this was 2022, 4 stars. I wrote a bunch of stuff, but then I said, while I agree, this is how I finished. While I agree that it's noble to pursue your dreams, okay, very strong take, Matt. The scene where Emma Stone's character is berating Ryan Gosling's character for making a fine living in a moderately successful band instead of opening a jazz club is infuriating. I was like so mad because it's like, you know, they had to have that argument where he's like playing in that band they doesn't want to be in, but he's made a career of being a musician.
Uh-huh.
And she's
The
basically like,
dream of many.
exactly. Like this, and he's making that point. It's like, this is it. I'm being paid to be a musician. This is the dream. She's like, no, like you need to open your jazz club. And it's like, I mean, look, ultimately, I think she's right, but it is like, look, first of all, a lot of jazz clubs probably fail. Okay,
Mhm.
like, I mean, maybe I'm not saying don't shoot your shot. Okay, if it's what you really want to do, give it a shot. But it's like, you know, this is it. I agree with him in this scene. Like, and now you're beating him
Yeah.
up a bit. He already feels
Yeah.
conflicted.
There were a couple moments. The argument that they have when they actually break up kind of bummed me out too. Like after her one man show or whatever, and he shows up late or something, and they have that
Yeah.
argument, and she's like, "It's over." I'm like, "Come on, give the guy a break."
This is so great. I mentioned the I mentioned the Faye Dunaway Warren Beatty thing in this post too. This is this is permanently cemented in my mind as the movie that was announced as Best Picture winner, and then had to explain to the audience that Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway got it wrong, and Moonlight actually won. This is what, hold on, Keith. One of the most mortifying moments of my life.
As a viewer.
Yeah. But again,
Yeah,
it's
you
like,
do struggle with that. I remember a time when we were in a bar. I think this was before we were before we were gonna go see oh my God, I'm not gonna Inherent Vice,
oh
and
yeah,
I knocked a glass of beer over on accident because it was like in between two tables that were butted up against each other, and
gotta
it
get out of here.
fell and the glass broke, and you were just like, dude, I can't even. I gotta go. I'm too embarrassed, and there was nobody else even in the bar. I don't think.
How can you live with yourself?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was certainly no knock against Moonlight, which is obviously a great movie on its own accord. It was just like, just the fact that that happened was,
Mhm.
you know, let's just hope it
Yeah.
doesn't happen again in my lifetime. Just
Yeah.
put the right cards in the right envelopes going forward, please. Okay, well, we'll keep it kind of short this week. I just thought it would be kind of funny to do, two movies that I really like, but also have this little weird
Mhm.
history to them. I did just want to like wrap a little bit on Damien Chazelle and Babylon, because I do feel like maybe there was a little bit like pushback against people, because in that time period it was like, Oscar so white, all these like, like minority movies aren't winning, and which was true, but it's like in Babylon there's this, basically it's this movie showing you that, like, look, Hollywood has been horrible for a long time. Like, and I kind of felt like that was Chazelle being like, why is my movie getting shit on for like
Yeah.
years of, and look, things evolve over time. Things get a little bit better. They get a little bit worse at times. We talked about it in Children of Men. It happens. There's an ebb and flow, and it's going to continue to happen. And you just, the desire is that you keep moving forward and keep trying to get better. Um, but in Babylon, it's like, yeah, Hollywood's horrible. That's the conceit of the movie through most of it. But then, like, they have this sequence towards the end of the movie where, and it's like, fantasy or whatever, because a guy sits in a theater and it just shows you the movie screen, and it just starts going through. It's like, E.T., Persona, like a wide range of moments from movies. And it's just like, yeah, but ultimately, these things that get created, these movies, these magical things that kind of pull people together and have, like, you have a shared experience. And it's like, yeah, look, there's a bunch of horrible things that have gone on in the background, but this is the place where we can all enjoy these things together. And I love that about that movie. Like, I think there's a lot of problems with Babylon. It's kind of a mess, but I thought that was such a, like, I love that idea. Yes, horrible, a lot of horrible things, but like, the movies are meant to be enjoyed and shared. And yeah, I mean, look, there's dark movies with dark messages and stories that people want to tell, but like, ultimately the cinema to me is this place where you can go and have this shared moment with people, or by yourself, because yes, there's been a lot of trips to the theater by myself in my life. Okay, we'll not talk about that, but
You're not alone. I used to do that all the time when I first lived in Florida. I used to go all the time by myself.
well, I actually really liked it for a while, because it's like, I don't know, it's just a nice time to like just shut down and be like, I always felt like you're
Mhm.
isolated from the rest of the world in that time when you're just like in the
Mhm.
theater. I shut off my
Yeah.
phone.
I feel like
Um,
there needs to be less of a stigma against that. People should be going to the theaters by themselves. I like doing it.
Absolutely, man. All right, good. Well, on that note, I think let's get out of Spotlight. Okay, so one last little bonus segment for everyone. On the last episode, Keith and I discussed his top 5 dad bro movies, which, caused some controversy over what truly is a dad bro movie, and then where does Reign of Fire fall on that list. And we decided that it was really more of a B squad movie, so we needed that top 5 dad bro B squad list. So here to present that list today is High Volume Videos, Keith.
Okay, top 5 dad bro movies. Number 1, The 13th Warrior.
Yes.
Starring Antonio Banderas.
This is one that I just always saw for sale on DVD at Walmart. Like every time you and me went to Walmart to buy DVDs, that was always sitting out.
Well, you know what? I'm pretty sure this one is stuck on DVD. I don't think there was ever a Blu-ray. But I really like this movie. It's kind of like one of those Seven Samurai like team up movies where it's just like a bunch of ragtag. They're like Nordic soldiers in this, but I think he is like Arabic or something, and he gets pulled into the group, and then they have to protect this small village. I don't know. It's a cool movie. Have you seen it?
No, I actually have never seen it.
Dude, I might make a video on this because I really like it, and it is, like I said, I think it's stuck on DVD.
It was that and The Ninth Gate. I like 13th Warrior and The Ninth Gate were always sitting out on DVD at Walmart.
Is The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I used to have that one too.
Yeah. Okay.
I like these movies.
Next on the list.
I think are counting down. So
are these ranked or are they just?
Yeah, no, we're just gonna put them all in.
Yeah, okay.
So number 2, Reign of Fire. We talked about that last time. I do have the Blu-ray for this, but this is the DVD that we watched on the surround sound.
High on Lindsay's watch list right now.
Dude, if you want, I will send you this DVD.
No, it's okay. We'll find it. We'll find a copy.
Okay. This might be, if we were ranking them, this would probably be your number 1, I bet you. This is Spinal Tap.
I don't know. I've only ever watched This Is Spinal Tap like once.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
guess I just figured because you're a bigger music guy than I am.
Yeah. I don't know. It does feel like it would be one of my movies. I just never really had a run with it.
Yeah. I think all the Christopher Guest movies are pretty funny.
Yeah, I like Christopher Guest too.
It's like mockumentary about, a rock band. It's fun.
Yeah.
This one I actually haven't watched in a while, but number 4, is this William Friedkin? Yeah, the Haunted?
Yes.
Friedkin, right? Yeah.
One of his more Hollywood type movies.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've watched this, but I remember really liking it. It's like dude on the run and other dude trying to find him.
Benicio del Toro and Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I remember the trailer for it. Also have never seen it.
You haven't seen Haunted?
No.
Okay, you need to get on these, Matt.
Yeah, really.
And the last one I have is Enemy at the Gates.
Oh, yes, of course. You know what other one?
Yeah.
Could have been on that list is is it Owen Wilson and Gene Hackman actually? Is it Behind Enemy Lines?
Enemy Lines?
Yeah.
That's a good one where he's like a fighter pilot and he gets shot down. Yeah, I like that movie too.
But I feel like that could be in this category too, don't you think?
That's in the category for sure.
Okay, good.
Maybe we'll just keep going with this segment and just add 5 more every episode until I run out of Dad Bro DVDs.
Okay, very good. All right, well, this was a very long episode, but it was a special one for our 2024 movies.
Wait, hold on real quick. I do want to shout out because when I posted these, I just want to shout him out because he's a good dude. Phil Ashworth messaged me and said he loves both of these.
Great.
When I posted that.
Well, listen.
Phil, if you listen, what's up, dude?
I don't know that he would make it this far. So, next episode we'll get back to the regular format, which also could change over time, but we don't have any other ideas at this point, so.
Yeah, we've been toying with the idea of maybe getting rid of a segment just to kind of cut down on the runtime a little bit, because I don't know, I feel like maybe when the episodes are over 2 hours, it might be a bit of a barrier for people. They might see that and be like, I don't know if I want to watch that or listen to that whole 2
You know
hour
what?
thing, but
Go run on the treadmill for 2.5 hours and listen to this. Okay, how about that? All right. Well, let's get out of here on that note. Keith, take us home.
Do it for pizza and go.